Right, okay. So I think we're actually live, guys, but could you please just pop something in the chat to say we are? Mike's also live, but Mike's got no sound and we can't figure out how to get him back on properly. So he might have to duck out in a minute. I think StreamYard's being a bit odd tonight, everyone. There seems to be two versions of the screen as well. Drop the Callum. Right, yeah, we are. I'm live. That's cool. Just making sure. We're having major technical issues tonight. Both streams are working. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the double screen. It's a little bit odd. Okay, so we have got thanks everybody. Cool. We've got quite a few people in the chat tonight. We've got a really special kind of final episode tonight for you all. We've got a Secret Santa. So I've got somebody in the green room. Santa Claus has literally turned up. So in a minute, once we said hello to everybody, I'm going to bring him on. And you guys are going to have to guess who he is. And then Mike can maybe get some cue cards and kind of just hold them up to participate. Or just sit and drink. Let's see who we've got on tonight. We've got Dave, nice to see you. We've got Ian. We've got Bowman, 1999. We've got Scott, Callum, nice to see you. We've got Reb, nice to see you. Springer G, I don't know what your first name is, but nice to see you. And we've got Major Not To, quite a few of you on tonight. So I want some guessing as well. So I think if he speaks, it might give it away. I don't know. So we'll maybe get him on, and I don't know the best way to do this, whether we, okay, let's just get him on and see if we can get some guesses going. Mike is just trying to come back in. So that sounds like he's got sound. I'm just waiting to bring our guest in, Mike, to see if anybody can guess who it is. Are you back in the game?
I think so.
We can hear you. Fantastic.
I'm a tiny little dot.
No weird echo this time.
Awesome.
Cool. So how do you want to do this? I'm thinking we just bring in the guest and see if anybody can start guessing, or have you got some clues?
Plan. Well, I give some clues in the description. This Santa, like the real Santa, is from a faraway, remote place. Travels the world every year, bringing joy and gifts to big kids all over the world. Is a legend, almost mythical stories I've told about him. That's probably as far as I've got with my clues. Callum is guessing Russell.
No, it is a good guess. You'll see that slightly different dimensions from Russell and also from Father Christmas. So we'll bring our guest in the nicest possible way.
Not in the Christmas spirit.
They are different body shapes. It's like nobody would confuse me with Pamela Anderson. Right, let's get our guest in and see if people can guess who we've got as our Secret Santa tonight. We're very excited about this. Welcome to the stage.
Hello, Santa.
Father Christmas.
How are y'all doing tonight?
It's an Irish Santa.
Maybe.
Quite a cool looking Santa as well. We've got the shades and everything.
Wow.
Right. And a very fetching Lidl's jumper, only the finest.
So can we give the guy some clues? Maybe Santa, what would your go-to dram be after you've been out in the sleigh all night?
Well,
out on the sleigh, it sounds like he's hooting about.
I'm quite often out on the sleigh, and definitely when I'm out on the sleigh, I've got a sweeter tooth. Maybe something more of the space age style.
Space ice. Is it Paul? No, too much clothes on for Paul.
Okay.
There's no way. No
Right, so
edible
sweets.
underwear that we know of.
But then again, I've got plenty of options, you know.
That's
I can do the Speyside, but I can go a bit more east into Aberdeenshire, or I can go up on the coast to the Murray Firth.
okay.
There's plenty of options.
Pretty good clues
That's
there.
quite a good clue. Yeah. So if you haven't got it
Speyside,
with that one, I would be
Speyside,
surprised.
Aberdeenshire, and the Murray Coast. I mean, it must that narrows it down a wee bit, doesn't it? Well, it's a Campbelltown accent, Callum's saying. It's not a Campbelltown accent. Not
He's
quite
no
as
far
remote
away,
as
though.
Campbelltown.
He's no far away. I originally hail from the Western Isles.
Okay. Oh, I've seen I've seen a right answer come in. So it's not Graham Cool. It's not Pinocchio Mark. Yeah. Thanks for your contribution. Ian's asking, is Ben Riach involved? And Ian Allen's put in a guess that we could maybe do the reveal unless anybody else has got any more suggestions about who Santa could be. I don't know. I think we've kind of given it away with some really good clues there.
Mull and Glasgow past. There's a guess on YouTube from Ian Abernethy. So
Yeah, I think everyone's getting closer.
I think we Santa, can you let us know who you really are?
Here we go. It's like the Masked Singer, isn't it? Is it the Masked Singer? Merry Christmas.
Look,
Hello.
And I'll just get the random shots in the back. So there we go. The full gambit. When we are Clondrona Glasser.
Well, it's great to have you on, Santa.
This actually is quite bizarre.
So we did have a right. On you go.
There was back in the Newbridge office down in Edinburgh when I was down there for a little while. We used to have a looky-likey board, and back at I can't remember what year it was, but my looky-likey was Billy Bob Thornton as Bad Santa. So it's actually taking me back to that picture a little bit.
I can see that actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've stopped smoking now, so if I had the smoke in my mouth, it would have been bang on.
You're not quite sweary either.
Well, I mean, did you date Angelina Jolie? Because
I've got my own
similarities could keep coming.
Jolie.
Nicely done. What would your lookalike be, Mike?
I have no idea. Like a famous lookalike or just somebody in the street?
I don't mean like, George from number 47, because that's not much of a reference point for us. But
I don't know. I guess it. Gerard Butler, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, close. I can see where you're going with that. Yeah. Cool.
I'm too tall for Tom Cruise, so I didn't want to go full hog. I don't know.
Who's some famous gingers?
That wasn't me. That's a comment from Mark. So.
It's funny though, because they do say that everybody's got a doppelganger out there, and I've actually had people send in pictures of random people in the street. It's like, I thought I saw you in da 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 da, and I've done the same myself. Almost tap people on the shoulder. So yeah, I think everybody's got their doppelganger.
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. I get Claire Foy quite a bit off of the Queen programme, The Crown. That seems to be the one people go back to for me. But I think it's the blue eyes that does it.
Ian thinks I look a bit like John Krasinski this evening.
I'm going to have to Google who that is.
I was hoping one of you guys would know.
Oh no, I'm lost.
If it's sport, I'm not going to know.
Same.
So he's an American actor with like a beard. So there you go.
I used to go, so when I was on holiday in Turkey many years ago, me and Tony went to a restaurant, and because I before I wore a flat cap, I wore a trilby, and this guy was just convinced I was Passenger. And I had no idea. I knew the song, I just didn't know. I thought Passenger was a band, so I was like, okay. But yeah, and the only reference point he had was I wore a trilby. So, but every day I walked past, he said, "Hey, Passenger," and asked me to sing songs and stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that. But I've never really been mistaken for anyone else.
There's actually an old, do you know what? I can't remember his name offhand now, but there was an old kind of 50s actor, unfortunately passed away quite young. And it might come back to me through the course of the conversation, but so many people say I looked like him, but I can't quite remember his name now. But yeah, old black and white, big icon, but it might come back to me. But I've got that movie star look, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
That's it. It's not Gene Kelly, is it? The one that does all the singing and dancing in the rain? I can see that maybe a little bit.
No, got it. Montgomery Cliff.
Oh.
You heard of Montgomery Cliff? That's what I get sometimes. From the older generation of whiskey consumers.
Okay, I can see. He's a bit suave looking, isn't he? Got a good eyebrow.
I was going to say he's got the very dark eyebrows, very bushy caterpillar style.
Yeah, that's a bold eyebrow.
I'm getting too hot with this hat on. I'll take my hat off, so that's good. I can let the heat dissipate a little bit.
Sorry, guys, we're kind of ignoring the people at home and just chatting lookalikes at the moment. To us, you look like Santa Claus tonight, Stuart. So.
That was ingenious, that little bit of beard making. That's how an ambassador spends their day, just making beards and stuff.
How did you make it?
I just happened to have some upholstery wadding up in my attic. I was like, I know how I can make a beard out of.
It's an impressive beard. It's pretty good. It's like a Blue Peter. I'll have to let you have my Blue Peter badge. Well, we need to find out what's in your glass tonight. I don't think anybody else has told us what they're drinking tonight. I think everybody was just busy. I've just seen Mark Watt gets confused with Winston from Still Game. Oh, I can't imagine that's true.
Honestly, no. That is true. That is twin stuff going on there.
I see that. Mark's maybe a younger version, just to stay in the good books, but yeah, I see that.
I mean, have you ever seen them in the same room together? Just saying. Right, so what's in your glass tonight, Santa Claus? And Mike as well. I see you've got yours poured already too.
Yeah. You know what? First dram of the night, or that lovely casual drinking dram that you don't have to think about. My bar dram of choice. Obviously, it's one of my own. You cannot beat the Benriach 16. Everything a sweeter palate should love, and to be honest, everything a Speyside should be, as far as that real icon of that classic Speyside character. And I go to that every time. That's where my hand goes to. So that's what I'm on tonight. Beautiful Benriach 16 at your closest whiskey shop for under $100. So even perfect for a little gift this time of year. Go to the whiskey shop in Inverurie.
That's a good dram. We need to get you into the Benriach tasting. I remember last time we did a tasting with yourself at, well, not the most recent one before that, it was a virtual event. And there was a Benriach, which was in a PX cask, I think 2007. It was in one of those really dark blue tubes and labels, in the old style label. It was just phenomenal. Such a good whiskey.
Yeah, I've got a sweet, and generally I've got a sweet tooth, and that's why Benriach just hits all my buttons. I unashamedly have a sweet tooth. You know, some people will ask me, you know, what do you enjoy on an evening? And I think a lot of people expect me to say something heavy or bold or dark and rich. It's like, no, just give me that lovely, easy drinking, sweet character, which I don't have to think about. I can just sit back and enjoy. And at the end of the day, that's what whiskey should be about. You shouldn't be fighting against it. You should be enjoying it, you know?
100%. Definitely. What have you got in your glass tonight, Mike?
I've gone Little Brown Dog, a little bit closer to home. And this is their 46% from that weird distillery close by. Doesn't actually say on the label where it's from.
Haters gonna hate, girlfriend. You know you love
This
it.
is a 12-year-old. But they've classed this as a pre-production core release. So their plan is to have it's a Glengarry version or going out as a core release for 12-year-old. But I think they're still working on either labeling or the blending side or the marrying side of it. So this is a pre-release and it sold out like that. And so
I'm sure I saw a picture of Andrew posting that, or maybe it was yourself, but it looked really cool just with that pre-handwritten label. But I'll tell you something that's quite interesting about that as well, which actually maybe reflects even the 16 here. This is 43 ABV, 43. And a lot of people say to me, oh, the Benriach 16, I wish it was stronger. It's like, why? It doesn't have to be stronger. It just hits the money right at that 43. And I think there's a little trend, even you see about Andy bringing that down to 46. Everything doesn't have to be cash strength these days. And I see a little swing maybe towards that, slightly more reduced, easier drinking strength just across the board. I don't know if you see the same.
We do. Well, at the shop, we certainly do. And I think one side of it is affordability. I think people are looking for, a whiskey that they can take out that's going to give consistency, like almost like a distillery brand. But for certainly in the bottlers, you see guys coming out with a blend or a non-age statement or something bigger production, and that typically, I haven't seen much below 46, certainly from indies, but yeah, they're reducing that, allowing them to reduce the cost a little bit. Obviously, the duty's less, and they've got more bottles that they can sell. So we see from a producer point of view, and as long as the liquid's good, the guys at home will buy it.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to go deep into topics at the moment, but I think that's an understanding that people have to look back, because how long ago was it that everything was at 40? So I think the bubble we live in today is the last 10, maybe 15 years, high ABVs, etc. But you only go back 15, 20 years, and you were lucky if you get 43. 40 would have been the standard across the board. So I think there is a heart back to that as well in some regards. And I've got this little feeling, like fashion and like trends, there is a wee hark to some of these old school whiskey characters or natures. So yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, 100%. Just on top of it there, Springer G is sitting at home watching, and he has poured himself batch 1 of the Benriach cask strength from the heart of Space Out.
Beauty, absolute classic. Short-lived expression. We only got to 2 batches of that, but again, it's one of these whiskies that gives me goosebumps. How do you know when a whiskey's good? It's not about nose, it's not about palate, it's not about, oh, that's got a fantastic depth and everything. How do I know a whiskey's good? I get goosebumps, and that was definitely a goosebump whiskey.
I've got it somewhere. I think it's through my cabinet. I think it's actually in my keeper's cabinet for a special occasion. I should have had it out tonight. More special than meeting Santa online would have been.
Well, I've actually got 5 lined up here, but it's actually progressing as we go back. So we'll maybe touch on a couple of bits, but yeah, I'll get 5 just on hand, just in case we need them.
Absolutely. Now, Kat, what are you having tonight?
Line out. So I wanted to find my bottle of Glenglassaugh, but I ran out of time because I cut my finger. I might go and find it in a second. So I don't actually have anything next to me just now.
Did you cut your finger opening a bottle? Did you?
No, I didn't actually. I cut my finger changing the bin. I'm so rock and roll. But I don't like the sight of blood, and it made me feel really queasy. So I had to sit down like a little girl. I was like, "Oh, my finger hurts." But I know, and then it'll just kind of drip on me. I just need to address Dave's comment. He said he's got cask number 3830. It's Glengarry. But Dave, is that what I think it is? And did you buy that from me, or did you buy that as a resale? Because that was the 1979, and I don't remember you buying that. So that's an interesting one. Let me know where you got that from and how you're enjoying it, because that's quite cool. That's a really nice whiskey. So no, I'm going to go and get a dram. I'm going to let you enter. My internet's a bit slow, so I'm a bit laggy, so I'm just staying quiet for a bit until it catches up, because I don't want to talk over you guys. Bloody internet. But I'm going to go find my bottle of Glenglassaugh. I have to make sure I've got my trousers pulled up so you don't all see my arse crack when I look for it.
I'm sure we'll find something to talk about.
Yeah.
So one of the drams I do have, this is one that we spoke about with Kate Watt 3-4 weeks ago. She was on us again. We were lucky enough to do a wee tour with Kate up at Tormore, and I was driving, so I didn't get to sample this on the night. But I've got a wee Ben Ray 34-year-old from the director's special lineup. So that's going in the glass tonight. So I had that looked out.
It does look, well, again, with that small bottle, it's quite unusual, quite hard to see the kind of colour of that, but it does look as if it's more in the hoggy, or is that a refill hoggy?
I think it's a refill. It's refill sherry. I'm not sure the cast size if it's a hoggy or.
It's hard to tell in that scope.
Yeah, just with the size of the. And then with the label behind it as well, it kind of gives it a. It's a lot lighter than it kind of looks from there.
Yeah, but Riach loves a refill anyway, as we know. Just keeps that Speyside pumping forward. Actually, Kate, obviously I know Kate very well, and unfortunately Mark, but just on the Tormore front, Tormore's one of my favourite drams. I've always found Tormore hitting that same sweet spot that I like, as far as that lovely toffee caramel biscuity note that comes through. And just totally bizarrely, my stepfather used to manage Tormore back in the 80s. So I've got a bit of Tormore relationship there.
That's a nice little link, isn't it? It's such a bizarre but beautiful distillery.
I know. How many times you pass that? I pass it a lot, probably more than you guys. But every time I pass it, it still puts me in awe of that whole. Why is that here even? You know?
Yeah. It's the part of the journey. It's one of those parts that you look forward to. So probably, if ever I'm away from home for a long time, my favourite part of any tour trip home is seeing Benihee for the first time, because that's that's our local hill for the guys at home, and it just towers over everything in Aberdeenshire. You see that, you know you're home, and it's just that kind of there's a good feeling. Tormore kind of almost has that whenever we're heading to kind of Abbeymoor, or you're off on a break, or you're going away for a holiday or a shopping trip, or off to see the wildlife park. It's one of those stages that you look forward to, and you're ready for it. You come around the corner and you slow down deliberately to see it and try and get as much of it in. But yeah, that's the first time I've actually physically stopped and been able to get off and go and have a look around, which was amazing.
Dalwhinnie's the same, isn't it? Dalwhinnie's that benchmark as you're coming out the other side, the A9. But very fortunate that one of my old colleagues, Douglas Cook, I'm sure you might know, Douglas, Mike, I'm sure. I don't know if you know Douglas. But he actually bought cottage number 11 at Tormore. So not only just popping in to see the store itself, lucky enough to actually make that proper stop.
Is he still doing his tours and excursions?
Well, if you do remember Douglas, he was such a passionate linguist, and it was languages he did at university. He's going back to university and he's actually going into a kind of more language teaching role. He's still career, let's say. He's still going to, I think, do the tours, but language was always his first passion. So he's going to dive into that big style. But just on the Tormore thing, just to talk about that one last thing. I remember John told me when my stepfather, John Adam, was looking after the place in the 80s, they had something like that. Don't quote me on the figures, but they had something like a 80 grand whitewash budget each year to keep that place just pristine, And it's like...
That's
and the
my
topiary,
idea.
you know, the garden, all this, 80 grand to spend on the grounds, basically. And by God, yeah, it shows, doesn't it? It's a beautiful spot.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's
80 grand.
beautiful.
God. Just to keep the
80s.
building white.
Yeah.
I imagine when they get a visitor centre, if they keep that going, they would have to, you know, with visitors coming and actually paying to go around it, they'd have to up the game on that. 80 grand will be nothing.
I would just do a team. I would just do a painting party. Just say, let everybody come up, have a dram, get your brushes out, and just paint the place in like a weekend.
See, everything becomes a party with Easter.
Health and safety might not agree with that these days in most companies.
What did you go for, Kat? Did you get a dram for yourself?
I do. I got my little Glenglasser, my Sunine, because you've got it too. Snap. So I had no idea that it was pronounced as Sunine until Mike told me, and I literally live here and I didn't know it was pronounced Sunine. So there you go. It's an education. But I absolutely love it, and I love the rebrand. I love the bottle. I love everything about it. So it's definitely a favorite.
Phenomenal spirit, and I think actually one thing that I love about that is, again, very honest in its cask maturation as well. It just lets all of that tropical stuff just shine right through. It's just like overripe bananas, mangoes, papayas, and even, don't get me wrong, this is not a brand speak here, but see, when you walk from the distillery down to the beach, you smell the gorse in June. The coconut, the vanilla, the almond of the gorse, and then you get a bit closer, you smell that crack of sea salt, the seaweed. That is in that. It is in that. Yeah. And again, jumping the gun about conversation, but that's what Rachel does very well. When Rachel builds a whiskey, she's not just looking at cask and how they complement each other. She's actually thinking about a place, then actually transporting you back to that place through the combination of cask and spirit. It's phenomenal how she does that. And Sandend stroke Sunine is a perfect example of that.
I think she
100%.
yeah,
I think
she's done
it's
something
even
with...
down to...
Crack on, Kat.
On you go.
No, you go first.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, even down to like the design of the bottle captures that whole movement of the sea. Like everything about it just is like this full sensory, like full circle transportation back to the distillery. And I was lucky enough to visit it about 2 years ago now and do that walk down from the distillery down to the beach. It was a miserable day of weather, but it's still, yeah, definitely every time I try the whiskey, it kind of transports me back to falling in love with that amazing distillery, which is quite ugly from the outside, but so beautiful from the inside looking out. But yeah, it's such a pretty bottle.
Yeah, it is so cool. A lot of people think that little ripple on the shoulder is the waves, but actually, if you look at some of the imagery on the beach, it's the ripples in the sand that's left after the tide goes out. So it just really does dial right into that wee ripple on the beach. But yeah, great combination. A bit of modernity, a little bit of kind of very tactile, but it does still hold that little traditional label as well. So it's got it crosses over a lot of kind of cues that you would want, you know, traditional, but still being a little bit more, let's say, unique on the shelf space. I love it.
Yeah.
Scottish sunshine in the glass, basically.
I was going to say that's what Rachel's done something with Glenglasser that nobody.
Scottish oldies. On you go.
Then Rachel's done something with Glenglasser with this new core range that I don't think anyone has managed to, even Billy hasn't managed to kind of capture that essence of the place of Sunine or Port Soy, but Rachel's managed to do that very, very well. Billy had some amazing drinks. We managed to share some at the distillery, you know, from Glenglasser, some really kind of cool old stuff, some rum cast and all that. Always good whiskey, but when it comes to capturing what Glenglasser is all about, I think Rachel's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and you could say this for all three distilleries or every distillery in Scotland. You know, you to go forward, you've always got to look back. You know, and you know, Rachel can only work with the tools that's been laid down previously. So I think that's been the good, almost regarding the spirit anyway, it's never been overshadowed by cask, and any cask that's been filled over the last, well, since 2008, like late 2008 when it first started up, is always about keeping the spirit prominent. And for me, that's just great adoration of how good that spirit is. It is absolutely phenomenal spirit, so why mask it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's everything I like in a whiskey. It's tropical, it's yummy, it's a little bit coastal.
And you know me, Mike, I always like to take the new make with me, so I just happen to have the new make spirit of each of the distilleries here as well. But you know, guys, that is the new make spirit, just straight off the still. And again, you can't have the sense of experience here, but even that little bit in your hand, you give that this big smack of smell. As soon as you get that first aroma of the spirit, it's purely tropical. There's even coconuts in there. It's like the gorse. There's almost the almonds. There's the pineapple, almost slightly bruised pineapple notes in there, and then that dissipates. But then it goes through this lovely transformation into this almost like baking bread and brioche. It's more brioche-y, buttery bread, which is a beautiful kind of barley element that comes in, and dryness in your hands, a little bit of stone dust, bit of minerality. So it's got this little kind of. I think we can talk about salinity down the line, but I think some people can confuse salinity with minerality or vice versa. Obviously, there's no salinity there because it's new make spirit, but there is a minerality there that gives you this sense of salinity, let's say, even in how that comes across, just purely in the new make spirit. Absolutely phenomenal.
Okay.
Can we address the fact that you have new make spirit in a cologne bottle? That is badass. Like that's next level.
That's my traveling case, basically full of that.
Sorry, guys. I am just going to disrupt things. I'm going to turn my phone upside down because that's not going to work.
You're the right way up for me.
There we go. I was trying to get my comments because I'm using my phone. My comments are on the right hand side of my phone, and I'm reaching over because all my glasses are here, so it's causing my finger to always go over the screen when I'm looking at you comments. But flipping it around just flipped the whole thing, so it made absolutely no difference. So sorry for the motion sickness at home.
I could try and keep up with the comments. We've got loads of comments coming in tonight as well. It's insane. Mark Watt is saying that the passion when you is exactly what whiskey needs, and I agree. Like honestly, if I didn't love Glenglassaugh before, I definitely would have liked it now. But yeah, how long have you been doing your role?
Oh God, I could tell you many stories about Mark Watt, but we'll keep Mark off the topic at the moment. But yeah, my role's always evolved. Actually, that's what I love about my years in industry, because I've over 30 plus years now. So starting in Tobermory, where I was kind of brought up in my more formative years, and got an amazing opportunity to start there in late 93. So you could say it was actually 94 because it was just before the Christmas shutdown. But that was it, pure Stillman, and being relatively handy with my hands. It was in the boiler, it was in the pumps, it was in the valves, it was just in the mash tun gearboxes. If you didn't find me beside the still house safe in the spirit safe, I was in the back of the boiler or covered head to toe in oil. So what a great introduction to whiskey, really. Just being thrown into a really old school distillery and just knowing how it works and hearing maybe what some people are missing today, all the bells and whistles and the Ogden pumps and the steam traps going, all these lovely noises that hopefully still remain in the industry. But yeah, that was my first, let's say, venture into whiskey there. Stillman stroke engineer, although that wasn't my job title. But it was a great opportunity to leave when Billy Walker called me, because Billy used to be production director with Burn Stewart, who I'd been with at the time. And then along with Alan McConaughey, distillery manager of Tobermory, we get the call. Basically, it was late 2003, Billy's like, I've got a new distillery, bit of a secret. Do you fancy coming and joining the party? So although we didn't actually take it over until well into 2004, myself and Alan had been nipping from Tobermory up to basically Benriach to get that place up and running. It wasn't actually getting the distillery up and running at that point. It was painting Alan's house so that he could move in. So we did very little distillery work back then. It was just basically I was painting the skirting boards so that he could move his family up. So that was my first introduction to Speyside whiskey, was being a painting and decorator, so Alan could move his family up to the region. But yeah, that point was amazing as well, because even Benriach had been mothballed for a couple of years, 2002. So the whole place had to be gutted. It ran water through it. It was all pressure tested, etc. So it was fit for purpose. But when physically moved up there in April 2004, it took maybe till September that we actually got production going. And that's what I love. If you want to know a distillery, take it apart and put it together again. It's nuts and bolts stuff. And that could be even going on to other people that you meet along the journey. Maybe some whiskey guys out there won't be familiar with him, but a guy called Jock Leslie, one of the best old school distillery engineers, ex-Chevis, retired and then set up his own kind of engineering company looking after Glengrant, Tomatul, Glencadam. He took on Benriach. And what that guy didn't know about machinery and then just in making whiskey, he didn't want to know about it. So me and Jock just went through the place, taking it apart like a big Lego kit, and putting it back together, cutting out stuff he didn't need, putting a wee twist here or there, and that was phenomenal. So that was really that's over 20 years ago now, of course. But Benriach really was the first move into Speyside and into the kind of family we know today. Glendronach came along 2008. Not much work needing done there. Pretty much just pass the keys over, get in and taste the whiskey. And you could probably say the same with Glenglassaugh in 2013, when Stuart Nickerson had started that up for the few years under his management, and then Billy bought that as well. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind in 20 years, really, if you think about it, even just moving up here, or even 30 years, 10 years to Tobermory. Benriach comes along 2004, Glendronach comes along 2008, Glenglassaugh comes along 2013, Billy sells them all to Brown-Forman in 2016, then I start that whole educational cycle again. So yeah, there's never a dull moment.
Yeah. I guess this time around you're at the top, you're the one doing the educating rather than coming in and learning as you go.
I left my production days behind me in 2012, actually, when I moved to the Edinburgh office into Newbridge. I still did maintain the kind of cask maturation and the kind of overview of all three distilleries and the maturation point. We used to have this whiskey Bible, basically, which is a progression of all the casks across the board. And I get along with Billy, keep that updated. And the single cask program was great back then as well. So very much focused on that. But when Rachel started with us, Billy sells it to Brown-Forman. There's all three distilleries to Brown-Forman in 2016, June-ish. And Billy had to stay on for about a year under contract in that acquisition period. Then Rachel started with us in March 2017. So as soon as Rachel started, that meant I could leave all the whiskey stuff to her, totally leave my hands clean of getting bruised and cut and bashed and bruised. And then that's when I started traveling the world a little bit more. So yeah, again, it's an amazing 30 plus years. But yeah, I'm glad to have touched every point that I have touched.
I think listening to you there, Stuart, and just talking about your time, I have just acquired this Mitch's book. He's actually coming into the bar on Sunday to do a wee chat about it. We're going to have a wee tasting. I would love you to do one of these, a memoirs of your time in whiskey, uncut.
Honestly. Yeah, and I know I have great respect to anybody who sits down and writes books, and because it's where'd you start, B, which direction you take, and it's a real, to make your your little moment shout. I think you have to have a different direction. It would be funny. It would have a different direction. I can tell you every hospital visit I've had, whether it was steam burns, caustic burns, cutting my fingers off, all these kind of things, as well as being out in the travels. But yeah, maybe it's a direction you should go in. I'll tell you that another interesting book that's just been, it's not quite released yet. It's not a book, it's just little snippets. Does anybody know the writer, whiskey writer, Alex Menzie? Many?
No.
Yeah. So, great guy. He comes up and he'll do a few kind of our press trips, etc. But he's written these little articles, these little booklets, tiny wee booklets, but he'll be inspired by something that you say. So I talked about Benriach and the Maltings, for example. But what he does is he writes fictional stories based on elements of the stories he hears in real time. So he's got, for example, a lovely little Benriach story where the fictional character Callum is in the warehouse cleaning up. Then John Duff appears at his back, almost like that kind of ghost of Christmas past. You know what I mean? And it's just a lovely wee, totally fictional, but really captivating little stories, which is a totally different thing I've never seen anybody doing. So that's not quite it.
Having a wee look. Alex Menzie, Whiskey and Stories Gang Together. Certainly have a look at some of his stuff. This is what I love about just going freelancing on the chat is the okay, is it me that's gone or is it everyone else? I'm going to add Stuart back. Hopefully he's coming back. Stuart, are you there?
Yes,
you're back.
Yes, indeed.
I have no idea what happened there. Normally it's me who gets kicked out. Everyone else left. Cat's gone, and then you disappeared. I'm like, okay. I'm good. So for once, I'm good. Santa's back. Cat has left the building, but I'm sure we'll have her back pretty soon.
Yeah. It was actually the same thing that happened earlier, but we all just kind of disappeared. But anyway, we're good now.
We're good now. And so as I'm just saying, what I love about the Blether not having that rigid or any kind of structure. Let's not call it a rigid structure. There's absolutely no structure to this whatsoever. But we find out so much from guys that you've been influenced by or who you're reading, like Alex Menzie, someone else we can go and have a look at, and hopefully the guys at home can pick up on that and think, well, I've never heard of him either. Let's go and maybe Alex will sell a book or two off the back of that. So I've got him up on my screen now. I'm going to have a reread of that afterwards. Well, I'm going to read Mitch's book tonight. That's going to be my bedtime reading. So I've got something to talk about on Sunday when he comes in.
What I liked about it was just this kind of fictional. And he says it's fictional. You know, it's a fictional little story, and you know what? Sometimes you need that break from the hard and fast hammering detail. It's like that's a lovely wee story. Small short stories, perfect. You know.
Yeah. I think that's the reason behind the title. Not another fucking whiskey book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like as amazing as they are. Dave Broom, Dave Sturt, Charlie McLean, all these guys that we know. A lot of it is facts. A lot of it's traveling around the country and speaking to people about the distillery, and it's like how much has actually changed since the last book came out. Dave had a great angle. Dave Broom had a great angle at looking at the place and the people rather than the distillery. And Dave Burkholz looks at the history, kind of, or the evolution. You know, his last one was looking at how far Campbellton has come, kind of thing. So, or in his pioneering spirits and things. It's so they all have a wee twist. But I think that what makes this book, or what I hope makes this book different, is it's telling stories of people in the whiskey industry. I don't know if you're mentioning it yet. I haven't come across any stories he's had involving you yet.
But I think every book serves its own purpose, like every whiskey does. You know, there's some whiskies books you want to use as your coffee table flick through. You know, there's some
Yeah.
whiskey yearbook. You know, you want a deep dive, or what's the fermentation there, or what's the any changes there, or fantastic. Ingrid does fantastic research into even people in place and different topics each time. Or do you want to just put yourself in a little dream space? You know, I think that's what I like about the breadth and depth of books that are out there nowadays. It's not just about facts and figures. There's almost each one of them serve a purpose in their own right. I don't know where mine would place in the evening reading.
Be a bedtime story for the kids.
Yeah.
I'm just nearly at the end of this Benriach, and so good. It's proper. It's a Chesterfield dram, you know, that kind of sit down and sink into that leather seat. It's just got all this kind of really oily, vintage, leathery notes as bags of sweetness, bags of vanilla that I thought might have been over. You normally get that really sweetness vanilla from quite a young spirit, a 34-year-old. I thought it'd been kind of more developed into an oakiness, but it's held that really well.
I think there's, again, I've tasted the majority of Speyside spirits due to the fact that back in the day we used to do reciprocals for blending under Biller's days. So that's one thing I liked about production days. See, when we're doing reciprocal spirit deals, I get the opportunity to tie almost, not every whiskey out there, but the ones that Billy would favour to be used in the combination. And actually having 28,000 litres of it arrive on your doorstep was a dream to me, you know, over whatever 30, 40 different distilleries across Scotland. I love diving into that new make spirit. But that's one thing that I always fall back on with Benriach. Well, as I said, with even Glasa, the spirit is phenomenal. Again, I know Kat loves my little cologne bottles, but right there, Benriach, classic new make spirit, 68.5 ABV. You put that, boom, 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 right there this time. That's pure orchard fruits. That's apple pie and ice cream right there. Even again before the cask, the barley sweeter, the kind of that lovely, not oiliness, but syrupiness. It's a really sweet forward spirit. So if I'm looking at Benriach, if you think about that spirit, what's his preferred cask initially? You stick that in a first fill bourbon barrel, American oak. That is purely that apple pie and ice cream combination, which is an amazing foundation to then graduate onto other cask styles or to move it from there. It's not the fact that we do everything in bourbon first. You know, we will fill. It's got enough. I think sweet syrupiness to hold an aggressive cask, whether it's like a more heavier sherry or I think there's a lot of pluralization sometimes with virgin oak, but personally, I'm going to say this, but Benriach and virgin oak just works phenomenally well because you've already got that sweetness which can carry that aggressive nature of the oak, where maybe you've got a bit more spirituous character or a bit more earthiness or spiciness in your spirit. You can have a bit of a fight with virgin oak, where Benriach, that sweetness just melds it right the way through. So yeah, Benriach spirit is phenomenal. Of course.
I'm just smiling because listening to you talking, it reminds me of just about 80% of what I spend my day saying about a different whiskey brand. It sounds very, very simple. So our new mixed spirit, that's the exact thing I say to people. It's apple pie and ice cream because I once really confused a Japanese director because he'd never had that before.
Yeah.
And we use virgin oak quite a bit, and I always say that about Guangini because it's quite a heavy, oily spirit. It doesn't get bullied around by the virgin oak and kind of balances out really beautifully. So yeah, I mean, they sound quite similar spirits, even though they're from different regions, which, we know that doesn't make a super amount of difference, but it's interesting to see the similarities between them.
It's true. And actually what I love, if I'm taking people through the distillery itself, there's certain points that reconfirm that orchard fruit journey. You walk into the bar, you walk into the mash house, Benriach, It's the sweetest barley note I've ever smelt in any mash house. You know, low temperature mash, 4 waters. The wort is as clear as black tea. Everything in the production, in the mashing of Benriach is, you know, really getting that sweetest barley extracted. And the wort, I could live in the wort alone. That's why I'm so healthy, I think. I just live on wort and wash, and the whiskey follows on from that. But then you get to the washbacks, get stainless steel washbacks, and you get that same thing. Oh, stainless steel or wooden washbacks. Don't even enter that conversation, you know. I think when you look at the Benriach stainless steel, it really starts to create these orchard fruit esters, and that's where the orchard starts. That's the green apple skin, let's say, that in fermentation, when you start to hit that kind of, you know, 80 hours or so, 72, 80 hours. But then what I love doing is actually going to the spirit safe, and in the first distillation side, you know, we can push the lid up a little crack, put your nose to that, and I'll say to you, what does that smell like? It's apple strudel every day of the week. Even the first distillation is apple strudel. It's a bit deeper. Okay, it's got a bit more earthiness, maybe slightly more on that vegetal side with the first distillation, but it's apple strudel every day, that baked apple, stewed apple. And then you go into the new mix spirit, and that apple is totally ripened into that golden delicious. So what I like about the journey in production, you can see the green apple skin going to the baked apple, stewed apple, to the ripe golden delicious apple, and it's undeniably there all the way through.
Yeah, right. So did you say 4 waters? So you've got a clear wort. Is the 4th water just to ensure that you're pulling through just a super clear wort to pick up those esters during fermentation?
I think there's only a couple of distillers. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong and out there, but I think Springbank still does a 4 water. I know Bruichladdich used to do it. And I think in general terms, it was more about just trying to, well, access more of the sweeter sugars in the mash. But what it enables you to do is lower the temperature profile. So if you're looking at 4 waters, the first and second water goes for fermentation, your third and fourth up to your sparge. But your first and second water, you know, as much as many distilleries, you know, it's going to sit around that 65.5 strike temperature. But the second water is only falling in at 74. So by the time that's actually in mash, it's only at 72, 73. So the first and second waters that are going to fermentation, they're actually at a very low temperature profile, which really does keep all that sweetness of the barley coming through. You're not cooking the barley, you're not stewing the barley down, you're not getting that husky, spicy barley bin note or deep barley bin note. It keeps the sweetness all the way up. And for me, it's like I always, if I'm going through the distillery, I'll describe it as whose mother cooks Brussels sprouts. Do you boil it at 99 degrees for an hour and just turn it into vegetable mush? Or do you just gently simmer these Brussels sprouts so they're nice and crunchy and all that flavour? So basically, our Brussels sprouts are the barley. We want to look after that flavour of that barley. So that's like that. I always feel just that lower temperature profile, especially that first and second water that are going through for fermentation. You could go into the deep depths of the chemistry of it, but you create more of the beta amylase, which then is going to give you this slightly sweeter, fresher notes in your enzymes.
I love that you just described whiskey making as al dente barley for your whiskey making. The Italians would love it.
Well, Italians,
don't
I love people forget about Italians these days. Say that again, sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Italians would be like, don't overcook your barley, but low and slow is the best way of flavor creation in whiskey. I think everyone's reaching that kind of realization as well, because for a long time everything was mass produced, sort of fast turnout, bulk turnout volume. But yeah, as soon as you start just taking a step back and doing things a bit slower, you know, giving it a bit more time and care, it really kind of helps build those kind of layers of complexity, which you're obviously picking up with the Benriach, the way you've just described it.
But I think that's another great thing about production. You know, out of the distilleries in Scotland today, it's like, well, you know, you look at somebody, well, I was there and they said this is how you should do it, or I was there and this is how you should do it. There's no way that you can capture how you should do it. What you do makes your house style, and that's how you do it. And I actually use Lefroy quite often as an example of the opposite of what Benriach would do, but what Benriach techniques are.
Have we lost Stuart?
I think we have. The internet in Elgin is obviously worse than the internet in Huntley. Either that or he's really good at building a pause for effect. Because I'm invested. Oh, there he is. He's back. He's back.
Yeah, that was spin about. All went spinny there. Yeah, I was going to say that I sometimes, when I go through, even just talking about Benriach, if I'm going through Benriach, I'll actually use Lefroy's techniques as an example of what is the total opposite of what we do, but what Lefroy does makes Lefroy, and what Benriach does makes Benriach. You know, you look at Lefroy, highly agitated mash, big cloudy wort, short fermentation, hard boiling first distillation, bottom end middle cuts. That I would sack somebody if they did that at Benriach, but that's what makes Lefroy, and that's what makes Benriach, you know?
Yeah. It's an incredible part of the industry or the production, isn't it?
A little bit different. On you go. The lag is ridiculous. It was like
permission to speak.
Internet from the dial-up days.
Yeah. I think it's just as you're seeing, that's two completely different styles and probably polar opposite in terms of flavor. And three ingredients. It astonished me, and you've got everything in between, with everyone making subtle changes along the way to make a completely different. Maybe not always completely different, but
isn't that the magic of actually what we do? We're dealing with three ingredients, and generally, water, yeast, and barley. And how incredible is it that out of these three ingredients, there's such diversity across the board? And that still blows my mind when I look at a whiskey shelf, whiskey space. It's not even talking about cask maturation. It just blows me away that from these three ingredients you can do that.
Yeah. I think it reminds me of what is the saying? Every little boy thinks his dog is the best, and every boy is right, or something like that. And you can put the same to whiskey, isn't it? Because there maybe is bad whiskey, but some people like it, and if it's their favourite, then they can crack on with it.
Yeah, that's another thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, as I was out in Turkey last week, and people, the comment, the worst comment I get, and then luckily nobody's ever said to me, no, maybe they have, but when I mention other distilleries, I don't like that whiskey. That's the wrong. You don't use that language. That language isn't right. You say you don't say you don't like it, because did you taste that one sip in the wrong situation, wrong time of day, the wrong company you're with? If you taste it in a different situation, it'd be totally different. So I don't like it when people say you don't like a whiskey. My question, if they do say that, would be, did you try it later? Did you sit down with it, open up a little bit more? Did you, just even take a little sip of it rather than just like maybe shooting it like something else? So I've never tasted a bad whiskey. I've appreciated every single whiskey I've tasted. It might not be to my palate, but I've appreciated every single one. Their own thing.
Yeah.
I palate cleanser here actually. Diane just poured me a wee bit of bubbly. So.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
I hope you've got enough for everyone.
That was just a palate cleanser between drams.
You would have H2O for my palate cleanser. Hold on, I'll give Tony a shout. See if she'll come to the garage with
try. I'm going to nip out and try and hotspot off my phone because I'm not picking up any. My internet's awful. I'm going to disappear for a bit. I'll be back potentially, maybe, hopefully.
So, Stuart, just in the last 12 months, are you still there, sir?
I'm here.
Yeah. My screen just went blank. Just in the last 12 months, what's been some of the standout, either whiskies or moves in the industry that you've... Obviously, we're talking a Christmas kind of special here, so let's look back over the last 12 months. What's kind of struck you as either surprising or standout?
It's undeniably been a tough time. I think everybody will agree there. I don't think anybody can say they've not been touched by market forces, yourself included, across the board, whether it's a consumer on the ground looking for drams, what we do to bring the drams to the people. I think when it comes to what's out there, I think you can't be greedy anymore. It sounds like in price, I think, as we're doing, that 16, you want to buy a bottle, $100, under $100. It's a drinkable dram, falls in that 80, £85, whatever it might be. I like that little rift that's going just now, going back to some nice affordable pricing that people can happily pick that bottle up. It doesn't just sit on their shelf. They enjoy it, 4 or 5 friends around, finish that bottle, and they're quite happy to go and buy another one. So I think there's a lot of things happening just now, and long may that continue. That the pricing on the shelf, there's an option for people, so I really do like that. I love a lot of new stories that are happening, obviously, across the board, but also discovering other ones that maybe you haven't seen for a while. Luckily enough, I was in Against the Grain, local bar in Elgin.
Oh yeah.
Best dram I've tasted for a while was 20-year-old Royal Bracklaw, which again, another distillery you forget about. So there's another that kind of thing where maybe even old distillery, you get the wave of new distilleries, which are fantastic, and it's great to taste that. But actually, there might still be distilleries out there that are old distilleries that people aren't familiar with, that still have lots to give and lots of love to share. And it's even discovering these old gems, never mind the new gems, which I think keeps that shelf space very active.
Yeah. Yeah, we've just taken in the new range. It's kind of part of the Gordon MacPhail portfolio, but it's not Gordon MacPhail that's bottling it. It's Spirit of Scotland range, and that there's a Royal Bracklaw in there that is it's banging. It's if you like big sherry hitting whiskies, then it'd be right up your street. On the other end of the scale, there's a Glen Grant. I think it's 11 years old or 10 years old, which is just that kind of real pear drops and apples and fruit sweeties in a refill bourbon. And that's 2 distilleries I don't visit very often, but when you get a good one, they're really good.
Yeah, Glen Grant's a good one for me, just for that honesty. I remember Dennis Malcolm, when he would walk a beer house, he was all over the traditional hoggy, as I am. Traditional hoggies, it's just that respect to spirit. Keep the spirit, keep the cask influence on the minimal. It's got to be there, and it will complement it, but let the spirit speak. Glen Grant's a great example of that. I've got a bit of Glen Grant in me as well, because with old Jock Leslie, he needed another hand, so I went down and we did their steam traps one afternoon with Jock. So I did a wee bit of work down there. But on the Glen Grant side, that's when you talk to people like Dennis Malcolm, these are moments that you can't recreate. And I don't know if you get it yourself, mate, but see, when you talk to whiskey people like Dennis, it could be many people in the industry. See, when you go back and revisit the whiskies, it goes, hold on, that makes sense. That makes sense when you see that authentic nature of what that old school distillers said or done or focused on, that maybe isn't quite maybe where marketeers might put a whiskey, but the real authentic DNA of the distillery comes through. So yeah, you look at people like David, Al Winchester, Dennis Malcolm. It could be what's his name again? Up in Tom Toole.
Robert Fleming.
Robert Fleming. These are the people where you start to talk, you understand what they're talking about, then you retaste that whiskey and something clicks, it's like, oh yeah, get it.
The dial-up internet cat is back.
I'm going to shout to my teenagers to get off the internet. We'll see if that works.
Just before we go back to Kat, I've got a question from Springer G, and he's asking, what's the secret to busting such a long-lasting, creamy, flavoursome whiskey like Glen and the Ben Rea? Do
you know what? I tell you, for good or for bad, I don't know, but a lot of people sometimes dismiss it. And I'm a great believer that everything stems from the water. For me, the water is the first building block. And if you can understand your water and what your water holds, you can then take advantage of using different techniques to having the water be the catalyst that unlocks other things, you know? So if you look at Ben Rea's water source, it's straight from the borehole at the back of the field, 100 meters down into this beautiful aquifer surrounded by sandstone. Now, I can't say legally, because Brown-Forman is very litigiously, nervous. But as far as we can find, it's got the highest minerality of any Speyside, water source, about 180 mineral parts per million. But when you look at and even look at John Angus, for example, when he was chatting a few Blethers ago, it's like, if you can understand what your first building block is, and if you can take advantage of actually tweaking a temperature here, tweaking a timing there, pushing another steep time here, fermentation time there, cut here, that's where you can start dividing stuff. And for me, that's why Ben Rea stands out. Just that water source for me is that first catalyst, which allows us to then drive into that really sweet, barley focused orchard fruit character. But I can't say that's the best. Is that the best way? No. You know yourself, mate. You go to Glendronach, you've got that softer water there, and everything at Glendronach goes down a way. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
High concentration, high temperature. Again, still got the wooden washbacks. As you know, that lovely saxophone-shaped first distillation, and then on to second distillation. And it's the first distillation in Glendronach, which really captures all the weight and all the base notes. So that's why I love working with these three distilleries, because they're using entirely different techniques in production, and that's fascinating to me.
I guess
it must be nice to have. Oh, you go.
I was going to ask you if you could start your own distillery from scratch, what kind of spirit would you have? I've got a feeling it would be something very similar to Ben Rea, but
yeah, I would go sweet barley. Just get the sweetest barley character into any spirit, and I love American oak. I was a bourbon drinker far longer than I've been a whiskey drinker. So these American oak notes really are upon. Another thing that might have kind of influenced my palate in that way was being born in Dumbarton. Because being brought up in Dumbarton before we moved to Mull as kids back in 1979. When I used to walk through the high street of Dumbarton as a kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, you could smell the sweet grain from Dumbarton Distillery. Now, I don't know if that's led to an influence in my palate today, but I think it has done in probably some cases where sort of the smell of the Dumbarton spirit when I was 3, 4, 5 years old has really founded my palate today. So yeah, I would go big, sweet, again, orchard fruits, and Glenglassa, even into that tropical. That's where, and cutting back the cask, just going back to old school hoggies, going back to third fill bourbons. That's my sweet spot.
I think Kat would be a purchaser of that.
100%. You'd have to name it Ode to the Cat instead of Ode to the Dark, because I would be buying that in bucket loads.
But another thing, I don't know if you see it, guys, but I'm seeing another trend as well where I'll go to different festivals across the world, and there's always the real whiskey guys at some of these festivals who have got their backpack with them. So I'll taste some of our whiskies that we're producing today, and then you'll always get a couple of guys reaching into their backpack. Taste this sample, taste this sample, taste this sample. I've actually seen a trend happening now with the whiskies that are coming out of people's backpacks are these old 70s Space Iders or these old 70s whiskies, which were much more distillery forward than cask forward. So I'm hopefully, again, not hopefully, it's horses for courses, but I love seeing these people bring out stuff that's not overcast, it's not overcast influenced, and is very much back to that DNA of the distillery. And that's what I like about what I'm seeing just now when I'm traveling.
Right.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. I think there's definitely a nostalgia for older whiskey just now.
Yeah, that's why I drink the 60. Oh, nice one. That's an old classic. Yeah.
Yeah. 14-year-old Marsala.
Yeah.
I used to have loads of these, and try to get a hold of them now is mad.
Yeah.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what? That was back 2008 when Billy Walker acquired, or Benriach Distillery Company acquired Glendronach. As much as obviously the foundations were laid down in sherry, we're approaching 200 years now with sherry maturation. Sherry casks were the bread and butter of the maturation. Billy couldn't help himself but try a few little twists on that. So so to put the port is maintained, so we've kept the port going. But we did some beautiful, even Marsalas and Sauternes at Glendronach, very small scale. Lucky about 6 casks, but it was that kind of little. Let's learn a little bit, let's play around a little bit, and then said, okay, that was fun. That brought some different twists and character to it, but just let's not confuse people. Let's just keep that straight path of that sherry cask maturation, or let me correct myself there, old world wine maturation. And as much as muscatels and Madeiras are old world wines, it was keeping that heavier weight style that really works with the Glendronach spirit.
Yeah. I was looking for something that I could go for on topic, and it's a bottle that's been sitting there for, you can tell by the label how crinkly that is. I'm not sure if you can see that properly, but it's been part of a few moves and part of a few spills. Let's go for it. I love this range. The Virgin Oak was a particular favourite.
Mm-hmm. No, we've still got a few. If anybody's passing a distillery, we do have them behind the bar, so we've got a limited kind of stock of that. So we always have them sitting there for people to dive into. If they're sitting in the bar, we don't have them in the tasting as such, but you can happily sit at the bar, buy a dram, and go into some of that old archive stuff, which is phenomenal.
That's good. That's good. Kat, when you were off with Stuart, what his highlights or standout kind of feelings of the last 12 months were? Do you have anything that's going to stood out for you, like successes or from the industry itself?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask something like this, and I was trying to think of something on the way home, and my brain was not coming up with anything. What?
Did you know I was going to ask something like this? Because I text you saying this is what we'll talk about.
You did actually. You did actually. I forgot you did that. God, for things like this, I had to just literally go back to my Instagram to remind myself of what I did in a year, to be honest, because how varied it is working in travel and tourism, working in distilleries. So you do so much crazy stuff. Actually, I think one of the biggest standout things for me this year was the fact that we were a sponsor of Tall Ships, Aberdeen. So Glengarry is such a little nondescript distillery, nobody really talks about us. People kind of forget about us. But we just became the sponsor of this massive, massive event. I've never seen so many people in my life. It was insane. I got to stand in front of a group of 250 dignitaries and ship's captains and talk about Glengarry, which was absolutely awesome. So I think that's probably one of my standout moments. Like, just really proud of my little whiskey, my little brand.
As long as you keep it little, keep it a wee secret for us here in the Northeast that we can strive to enjoy.
Glengarry's making big waves, pardon the pun.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
But yeah, you reminded me of these things. You sometimes forget about moments as well, because remember with Glendronach when we had the Kingsman Movie Association? Now, that was purely organic. That was not a paid promotion. That was purely just from the love of Garvin Brown, who was one of the Brown family, just at the same acquisition period of Glendronach. And it was Matthew, what's his name? Matthew Vaughan? Matthew, the director anyway. He phoned up Garvin Brown and said, "You've just bought one of my favourite distilleries. Can we have you in the movie?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll do it." So we managed to scramble about and we executed it. But that was one of the most bizarre moments in my life. Like, "Stuart, you need to get out of London." I was like, "What for?" "You go to the premiere of the Kingsman movie." So I'm sitting there with bloody Kelly Minogue and goodness knows who else in the premiere party. And then, what's his name again? The big fella played the dude.
Colin Firth. No.
What's his name? Oh God.
Colin Firth.
No. He's a big hippie American guy. Oh.
Is it John Cena? Wasn't it, or something like that?
Samuel L. Jackson.
No, he's a wrestler.
No. Oh, I had it at the tip of my tongue.
Samuel L. Jackson.
No. But these are but I'll come back to me. I'm not a big movie watcher, as you can tell. But these are the moments you sometimes forget about that you have to get triggered to remember. So, oh God, that was bizarre, you know.
Channing Tatum, he's the guy that does the Magic Mike. He was in it as well, wasn't he? That must be the guy.
It was the big.
He was in
other movie. His other movie was The Dude. Big kind of hippie guy, kind of amazing.
The dude, as in the Big Lebowski, the dude.
No. And they come back to him. But do you know what? I'm just going to go back to your previous question, Mike, as well about things as, you know, market or what's happening in the whiskey environment. And I think it is quite an interesting time. I think we always knew there was the kind of softening, but I'm always upbeat. I'm always in the kind of the front foot rather than the back foot. So even like Turkey 2 weeks ago, Turkey is exploding. Turkey reminds me of what Poland was doing 8-10 years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, love going to France, love going to Germany, love working in the UK. UK is actually nice. They're making some good numbers now. But see, when I see markets like Turkey come through, which Poland did 10 years ago, or we're now launching in India, and you get a percentage of that. We're now going into Latin America, where the malts, and maybe it's the progression from the consumer laddering up from blends to malts. That excites me about the future. And I think as well, oh, Jeff Bridges, the answer's come through with his name. Jeff Bridges, that was the name. But I don't do doom and gloom. There's so many people who sit back and say, oh, there's negativity, distilleries maybe shutting down production, going into silent periods, or the negativity of maybe the market circumstance at the moment. I don't feel that. I am in the front foot with the positivity of the markets that are emerging. And that's what makes me get up and go to different parts of the world every day, because I see the energy there.
Mm-hmm. I think we have that as an industry. It's robust, isn't it? But it's versatile, and if there is knocks from one side, then we've got enough markets, or we can find something to.
And the fact that we've seen it all before.
Yeah.
We've seen it in the last 30, 40, 50 years. There might be people living in the window today that haven't seen the last 5 decades of the industry. But if you look back at the last 5 decades, we've always weathered the storm.
Yeah. I think would I be right in thinking that maybe what's going on at Glendronach just now, and you look at guys like Glenfiddich and Glenglassaugh, Aberlour, kind of either up in production or building more storage, are kind of making sure that they're ready to weather the storm, so that when it comes back in and whiskey becomes big again, they've got stock ready. You look at how Springbank weathered the first fall of Campbelltown. Is they just persevered, they made spirit, they knew it would come back, and they weren't playing catch up when it did come back, and they're like, right, we've got stuff, let's go. Is that some of the reasons why that something like Glendronach is really up in production at the moment, or plans to?
It's all about scale and demand, isn't it? I'd be worried in today's climate. I'd be worried if we're making 25 millilitres a year, but I'm worried if we're making 1.4. Not really. You're actually, in some ways, by keeping that production lower, you're future-proofing yourself. Even little Glenglassaugh. Glenglassaugh was designed to make 1 million litres a year annually, but remember that was to feed Highland Distillers blends. We've only ever worked, even when Stuart Nicholson started up, he was only making 150,000 litres a year when he started up. Billy moved up to 300,000, maybe up to 600,000. We went back down to 400,000. So we've only ever worked at maximum half our capacity. But then that hopefully should be laying down the liquid that makes you future-proof to the big ups and downs. Springbank's a prime example of that. Benriach, the same thing. Benriach also, built to feed the blends of Chevis. Could make 2.8 million. Sits about 1.4. It's like, because we don't do blends anymore. So all the stuff that we do is for single malt. But again, you've got to just like throttle back, throttle up, throttle back, throttle up, just to kind of ride these waves. I know there was a lot of stuff in the press through the summer, which I thought was quite hilarious. Where it was like, oh no, Glenglassaugh's shutting down. And it was one of our poor stillmen, actually, TJ, had posted something on his Instagram. But I think what I like about how we work today is you've got to work economically. You've got to work with a sustainability factor built into your production. It is by no means, in today's environment, it is not economical or environmentally sound or friendly to be working one mash a day. So what do? A distillery only works well and at its best when it's working hard. So you want to do one mash a day, then cool everything down overnight and do another mash a day. You got to heat everything up again. Your fermentation times are all out of pot. So that's a great decision that we made in the last 3 years. It's like let's run Benriach and Glenglassaugh in block distillation, where we silent one, work another, swap that round, work one, silent another. It works perfectly, and it works at its most sustainable and its most efficient. And that was maybe misconstrued by maybe some journalists, let's say, who didn't quite get it. But that's what you have to do today. Just work more wisely.
Yeah, I guess it's a business at the end of the day. As much as we as consumers would like to think it's more than that.
Well, again, I would actually argue against that. Not even just the consumer. I know you look at some of the Nordic markets, who have sustainability very much tied into what you're going to get on the shelf space in the monopoly, for example, Glenblom. Yeah. If you as a distillery are going to enter into a tender for a whiskey on the shelf, unless you hit their sustainability factors, you're not going to go on that shelf space. So if I was to turn around and say, well, yeah, we work on Glenglassaugh 1 day a week, that's no way. That's not going to hit their sustainability factors, is it? It's just they'll say no, it's not efficient. So that's one thing we're looking at is that sustainability. We've reduced our carbon footprint across all 3 distilleries by 85%. Not only in the way we work, but actually by redesigning the bottle shapes, lightening glass, more recycled nature in the glass. There's lots of things behind the scenes that we do at the distilleries that maybe the front or the end user doesn't realise. And maybe sometimes the end user consumer thinks it's a brand change or just a redesign, but there's actually more to it sometimes than actually what's on the shelf. There's many more things that happen at the back to make these things happen at the front. I've been too controversial. I've been too transparent.
Not at all. I love it. I think it's great. I think that the whole Glenglasser thing it was a social media frenzy, and people love doom and gloom.
Absolutely.
They love to shout about it, and it kind of went way out of context.
And saying that, I'm just going to sip of the Sand End right now as well. So it's a wee Sand End, Sanine, 50.5 ABV. Can't beat it. Slams.
Love it. Love it. Kat, what's in your glasses now?
So I'm just sat very quietly because my internet is so laggy. So I'm just kind of nodding along sagely. But I've got, thinking about celebrating everything this year, and kind of summing up a year. It was obviously my 40th year this year as well. So I spent the whole of this year saying yes to everything. And then I was gifted a very, very special bottle for my birthday. And I do see that Mr. McKendrick is on the chat tonight. He is joining us with one of his own Lady de Glen Benriachs. But he gifted me this for my birthday. So it's a 1985 with a bespoke label with a little distillery cat on it. So I'm going to have one of those because it's obviously a very special night getting to drink whiskey with Santa. And Paul's going to have to remind me what it is because it's a blend and I can't remember what it is. So Paul, if you're still watching, please type in and tell me what it is because I don't remember. But it was a very nice gift. So that's what I'm going to have. What's everybody else dramming?
Actually, just to touch on Paul while Mike's finding his dram, I remember when Paul used to work in the whiskey shop is it Bow Street in Edinburgh, just across from the Bow Bar. So that's when I first encountered Mr. McKendrick, and I can't remember how many years that is, but I was also unfortunate enough to be away when he was hosting a tasting in Against the Grain. I missed it, so I've not actually tried that new range of whiskies, but I really need to visit them.
Yeah, no, they've got some really, really nice stuff on the go. I've been lucky enough to just pretty much sit in on most of his tastings for the last couple of months. But yeah, he's got the Benriach in what's he saying it's in? It's in a wine cask. And he's actually asking what makes Benriach capable of standing up to so much cask influence. But I think you kind of actually answered that a little bit when you were just talking about Benriach earlier. But yeah, he's a very good at what he does.
Yeah. Hi, Paul.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I saw that's an old label. Well, not an old label. That was an interim label one you have there, Mike.
Yeah. This is Peter Drum Cask, which I got, if I remember right, from Russell for my birthday. A few years ago, we went up to when Russell was with us, or working with us. He's still with us. And
not dead.
he's not dead. We went up and had a sit in the distillery and went for a nice meal. And this was a present. So Peter Drum Cask from 2007, year in 2019, 12-year-old.
Yeah. I think when stuff like that, see when you look at the core range of Benriach, I love the 10. 10's my drinking dram. I remember I used to go into a bar. If someone said what do I drink in a bar, it used to be Springbank 10. That was my going to a bar, bring a Springbank 10. Can hardly see it anymore, but Benriach 10 is my bar drinking dram, but 16 is my late night drinking dram. But if anybody knows the core range of Benriach, I don't think they really understand Benriach until you dive into some of these single casks, which are absolutely phenomenal. And we're lucky that in the past we have been putting out these, batches of single casks each year, as well as the visitor centre having the distillery exclusives, which are also phenomenal.
I've noticed that there's some. So I am watching. So I've got the screen on my phone, which is down here, but I've got YouTube up on my laptop so I can read the comments. I've just realised that the live chat was switched off. I was just getting chat from what's it called? It's not live chat. It was called Top Chat, which filters some of the chat. So I apologise if I haven't picked up on some of you guys. I know it was Callum had mentioned, and quite a valid point, saying that the industry in general involves weather, storms, individual jobs, and lives' futures are being hit by the downturn, which is completely understandable. You can see why people kind of get affected by that 100%. And it's not just the saloon side. Shops have closed down. We've lost 2 up in the northeast quite recently. But I guess the longevity of the industry is the industry's priority. Unfortunately, there's going to be casualties on the way. Callum has also mentioned that he's on an advent calendar blind dram. Turned out to be to Matt an 18-year-old sherry cask. Is that the core range Oloroso sherry, Callum? Be interesting to see. He's nonplussed about it. He thought it was flat and unexciting. So he's away to find something decent to drink now. Such is the palate of some of these guys. They get so much exposure to some great drams that an 18-year-old 46% Tomatin doesn't excite you anymore. It's the paradox of choice, I guess.
True. Again, I'll hold that. Actually, that's why that Berria 16 that just hits my buttons. But again, I'll happily leave. It's not going to be a late night. It's not my late night winter dram by the fire. It's a social dram. It's the first one to start off, and I think that's what I like about even across the board in whiskey shelves. You find that one whiskey that fits that time of day, that fits that kind of scenario you might be able to sit with. It's Dundalasa for me is in the garden in the summer every day. You know what I mean? And then Glendronach. I probably drink less Glendronach, and it's not because it's my less favoured distillery. It's just that I drink less of it because it's my more late evening long sipper. It's that one glass you pour and it'll last you all night. So that just goes back to the flexibility across whiskies that people maybe should look at as well. Is that, if that whiskey doesn't suit you in this occasion when you pour it, it's like, well, drink it in a different scenario, different occasion.
Callum, we're not calling you an alcoholic. I'm just saying you are spoilt for choice of great drams.
And even, I don't know, like, this is another one. I poured this one more in kind of a homage to yourself as well, Mike, but this is actually from 2020. It was one of the batch, I think it was batch 17, Benria single casks. It was a 2009 11-year-old peated port pipe. 60.3 ABV. And honestly, you want to sit and sip in a winter dram? Again,
there was 2 of them, wasn't there? Came out very close together. There's an 11 and a 12, or a 10 and 11.
Yeah, different batches. I think we got a bit of batch log, so there was a bit of kind of cross kind of stuff in the market. But honestly, that 11-year-old, and same thing, you get that. I think at the time it was definitely under 100 quid. You could probably still find it even 5 years later, still under that £100, ceiling. And that goes back to that whole age thing as well. It's like my favourite whiskies sit under 15 years old. My drinking whiskies, don't get me wrong, I love all whiskies, but the whiskies I sit and drink on a day-to-day basis are all even actually between 10 and 12 years old. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah. I guess if you're consistently drinking higher age than that, then it's expensive. It's an expensive enough hobby. Yeah. That port pipe is. So when we launched the Highland Whiskey Academy, one of our first guests, the guy Gavin Mills, came on. He was at the tasting that you held with us just last month, and he came along. Did not like peated whiskey. He was a space cider. He was a sherry cask. He was did not like peated whiskey. The first day, we had a great lecture from Paul McLaughlin, who talks about olfactory. And then at lunchtime, we kind of say, well, have a dram, pick your pour, and have it with lunch. So kind of the bar is open to them and they can pick whatever they want. And then, so Russell with us, and me and Russell were chatting, and Gav was like, well, I'm here, I'm in the Highlands, I want to try something peaty while I'm here. And it was, I can't remember which one of the two port casks it was, but Russell said, well, let's try on this one. And it was a light bulb moment for him. He's just like, and he's sending me up samples of the latest Octomore release he's just bought now, and he's going really into his heavy peat. We've actually created a monster, or you guys created a monster by introducing somebody to that Benriach peat.
And that's what you need. You need that catalyst again. That catalyst, or that kind of that first peated whiskey that hits with people. And we've all heard it before. People will just umbrella it. I can't drink single malt whiskey. I don't like the smoke. It's like, okay, what was your first experience? And it was pinching up. We know it. It was a pinching a Lefroy out of their father's drinks cabinet back in 1970 canteen. It's like things have changed since then. And even that whole smoky revolution, you could call it, and stuff. There's more people playing with smoke that maybe historically couldn't have maybe put there. But they've been even working in Tobermory, late chuck when I was younger never really resonated with my palate. Back then it was different as well. It was a bit grassier. I know it's progressed a lot now, but I didn't like that kind of grassy dryness of a smoke, or the ashiness of a smoke. See, when I went to Benriach and started looking at the warehouse there and finding that Speyside, that northeast smoke, that just totally opened my eyes to something I wasn't experienced from the West Coast. And that just sent my journey in a total different stratosphere when it comes to peated whiskies. And that's the thing, that's what we need. That's what we do in the road, is education.
Yeah.
Just rather than hearing that word peat, then everybody running from the door. It's like, hold on a minute, let's calm down. Do you like barbecue? What do you
There's so many people in the shop come in and say, well, I don't like Islay whiskies. And you can sum it up, you can say, so what you're saying is you don't like Lefroy, or you don't like peated whiskies. It's not the Islay whiskies. Here, have a Bunnahabhain or have a Bruichladdich classic. It's about educating them that whiskey has styles, and yes, it's compartmentalized to a point, but there's so many bridges between these compartments that you can open the door slightly.
Mm.
If you had a whiskey that was Lefroy and somebody says, oh, well, you don't like peated whiskey, then stick to Speyside. That's in your head as your first whiskey experience. Then you'll just believe that. You'll just think, well, that's what I like, or that's what I don't like. And until somebody challenges that and kind of pushes you to taste something different, then you're going to be stuck in that blinkered.
Or maybe again we suffer today of what happened in the decades before us as well. Even if you were a single malt consumer in the 80s, were you supposed to be big and aggressive and bold and smoky, and you weren't allowed to be nice and sweet and fluffy and barley and apples and oranges, so there was a bravado that went along with single malt. And we're not going to go into the advertising of that either in the 70s or 80s, or the 80s and the early 90s, because we still suffer from that today, which has probably in some places still put single malt in the headspace of 20, 30 years ago. It's different. There's always been that connotation of where it was, but we need to go forward, and we are going forward, and we've been trying to go forward.
Yeah. People are more open nowadays, aren't they, to try something different, or to loosen the shackles of what they've always believed. People are more aware of changes, whether it's a curse or benefit of social media or tasting events. There's more physical whiskey shops now, or distilleries offering tastings than ever before. So people are exposed to be adventurous, and they're challenged. So hopefully we're going in the right direction. We've got Callum at home. He is asking his usual question. So, Stuart, what is your favourite distillery from each of the regions or localities? Highland, Lowland, Speyside, Campbelltown, Islay.
Well, this is very, very weird because actually it's not weird, but I just don't hide it. I've always been an Ochie fan. Love Ochie. Love Auchentoshan. One of my favourite drams actually was Valinch back. There was a couple of versions of Valinch back in the day, probably 2010 or something like that. That was always now my standout dram because it was high ABV. It was I don't know, I can't remember if it was fully virgin oak or at least a very high percentage of virgin oak back then. And I just loved it. That was my nectar. And then when it came to Islay or West Coast particularly, it was always maybe more Bowmore on a whiskey level for me, a peat level of smokiness, or actually maybe some of the old Kalilas if you were really going to have a bit more kind of cash to spend.
I think can't we say you're right the first time?
I know, I'm Ochie all the way.
I thought
But
you might
what?
just go for the Suntory hat trick and then Glengarry is your Highland favourite. Just go all in. I'll give you a job.
But this is actually the weirdest thing. I've said this for 20 years about Ochie and Bowmore, and then Rachel joins us, and I'm like, hold on a minute. There seems to be some kind of synergy here. But yeah, Ochie definitely go to. Not even just for the loads. That's my go-to when it's on the shelf, to be honest. Bowmore for Islay. Don't get me wrong, Kilchoman I love as well. What other regions were that?
Speyside, I think, is a give me.
Yeah, there's my three favourite Speysides. I've touched on one already. Glencran. Actually, we've touched on two of them already. Glencran, Tormore, and Glenelgin. And again, if you look at the similarities of all these three, you can maybe guess my profile because there is a lovely focus on these three, particularly that are in that sweet spot of just classics.
Yeah. 100%. Campbelltown?
Campbelltown, obviously, again, if I was going to a bar, bar-wise, go to a bar, it would be Springbank 10 every day, like in a bar, and I would just always stick to Springbank. But then I did love a lot of the Kilkerran stuff when it started getting some nice age on it as well. So Springbank, 100%, but not the old Spring, just Springbank 10.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do then with Callum. He's going to be upset with that. But Kat, sorry, you were saying?
Oh no, I was just thinking I love the Auchentoshan love because it's funny. We were talking at work today. There was a guy in from, I can't remember where he's from, but he was saying he just wasn't a fan of Auchentoshan, and my colleagues were asking me about this because I don't know, there just seems to be one of these ones that's quite under the radar that people kind of like to snub their nose at, and I think it's because we said touching this before as well. I think it's a supermarket dram. People think because it's cheap and in the supermarket, it's not good. But I use it all the time in tastings. It's like entry level for people that aren't into whiskey because it's just really easy going, but not in a empty way, just in a sort of really approachable way. It's fun. I don't get people's hate, but yeah, it's. I'm going to have on writing, endorsed by Stuart Buchanan, legendary brand ambassador, Drinks Auchentoshan. We're going to use it in our new branding. It's going to go on merch.
Do what I like about Auchentoshan is it's a great whiskey to use to showcase the influence of the cask. You look at the American oak, and it's classic American oak. You look at the 12-year-old, you've got really nice kind of sherry notes coming through. And by using the same spirit, you can kind of say to people, this is kind of a classic way of the cask. The virgin oak, I don't think they do the virgin oak anymore, but that was a really nice kind of spicy kind of mandarin kind of note to it as well. And I think that's what I like about Ochie is the spirit is delicate, but holds quite a nice element of the cask as well. And if you had the three Ockies side by side, very, very different in terms of casks, but you've got that thread that holds them all together, and you can use that as an educational tool as well.
Yeah. And the same thing, for me, it kind of actually goes again. It doesn't go against it, but it kind of reconfirms the age thing. I don't want to see an old Ockie. I don't want to see a 30-year-old Ockie. I want to see something 8, 9 years old, vibrant, punchy, zippy, zesty. You know, that's what I want to see from actually most distilleries. So yeah, it takes that age thing hopefully out of a conversation when you can just really enjoy a young whiskey.
A 10-year-old Bordeaux wine cask Ockie here.
Yeah.
I think this is the one that you and Tony bought for me when you were down the road at a farm trip, Kat. Oh, she's gone. So she can neither confirm nor deny it, but I'm pretty sure that's when I got that. And the fact that it's full is only because I got 2 bottles.
And the same,
not because I didn't like it.
It's like red wine is difficult. It's a big the big Bordeaux. It's like unless you've got a spirit that has got that syrupy sweet, and again that sweeter element that can balance a heavy cask influence or the red influence, it doesn't work. I know somebody, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a third party who did I won't even say which country of red wine it was because that will give it away, but it wasn't a French red wine, put it that way. And somebody sent me a sample of it and said, "Why did you use this red wine? It's horrible." And it's like, hold on, we've never used that red wine. So anyway, they sent me a sample, tasted it, and basically I was drinking a Benriach 13 years old, single cask, but it tasted like a Negroni. It was bitter, it was dry, there was no Benriach left in it whatsoever. So again, I only say that because again, that sometimes, and this is not, I don't know where I'm going here actually, but it's like when you see stuff in the market sometimes, which is maybe a third party, it's like, that's not us, that was the third party that did that. And you've got to know your spirit to know which casket works on well, or to keep that DNA of the spirit in the pure essence rather than the cask domination. So Benriach does normally work with that, but I think that cask had probably gone through 5 or 6 different hands. So by the time it got to the last hand in a whatever head red wine cask was, it had been totally
tired. Yeah. God. I guess that's the pitfalls of it is you guys get the blame, or whoever it is doing the bottling gets the blame for that, and
I get calls all the time. I couldn't tell you how many times a week I get sometimes calls saying, actually, I found this cask on a broker's list. Is it legit? Even? Is it, if it's on there, it should be legit, surely. That's one of the main stipulations. It should be on there if it's legit. But yeah, that's a totally different conversation altogether.
I'm loving this. This is still the rum cask.
Do you know what I'm feeling? I'm just going back to this the port cask, and I say this quite often with a lot of the kind of heavily peated Benriachs, when maybe they are a high ABV. See, when you actually pour that dram and that first or second sip, you're getting the big sweet smoke. See, when you actually sit and sip it, you forget after about the third or fourth sip you're actually drinking a peaty whiskey, because it just becomes so much in tune that the smoke isn't the priority. It's actually the sweetness becomes the main middle factor, and the smoke is actually pushed back further. So I love how even a sweet, and that goes back to the same thing about how you approach a whiskey. Don't just pick it up, taste it, and say I don't like it. You let that sip, sip it slowly, you let it open up. You go back to it half an hour later, you might even not realize the smoke's there, but it's still exactly the same when you tried it first.
Yeah. We have Mike Lord is watching on Facebook. Good evening, Mike. Hope you're well. He's picked up the fact that Mark Watt might use that for a Negroni cask when we're talking about the.
Well, good. Good to see you, Mike. It's been a long time. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And knowing Mark Watt, he'd probably take the Negroni. He would distill. He would make it of a Negroni, distill it, make a Negroni, distill it again, then bottle it. So, yeah, Mark Watt is the Negroni king.
I've not had a Mark Watt Negroni yet, so we'll have to
Oof.
remedy that. So, what are you looking forward to next year? What's exciting you about 26?
India, launch in India, which again, you know yourself, you got a fraction of that market. Fantastic. Africa's even booming up. Again, a lot of ambassadors that are out there already activating. We're just really starting to tickle into that market. Latin America, again, you can see that lovely progression from basically the strongholds of blended whiskey, then people laddering up into single malts. We're seeing that a lot. A lot of these big, strong, historically blended markets, the consumer base is now laddering into single malt, and if we can capture just a small percentage of that's why I don't say negative, and that's why I don't feel negative about what's even happening in maybe Europe or what you could call the traditional markets today. The traditional markets, yeah, they are soft, but hold on, there's other markets that are growing, and I would rather stay upbeat about those than crying my croissants about other markets,
Yeah. No, it is. It's exciting in many ways, but as we have to suffer the bumps along the way, I guess.
I think what just on that, mate, I think what happens in today's environment is you got very much a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
I think knee-jerk reaction maybe isn't the path that maybe should take, and I think that knee-jerk reaction, which might be happening, will be hopefully quite quickly resolved, and it doesn't create maybe the negativity that does happen. I think that if there's one thing that happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you can go back to the 80s or before, I think, yeah, there was fast knee-jerk reactions which were closures,
Yeah.
We're hoping we're still riding the wave a little bit and being a little bit aware of we can't be too drastic, and we still need to do what we do.
You'd like to think that we've learned the lessons as an industry of previous crashes, and we can negotiate, navigate the ship a little bit, and I guess opening new countries instead of just shutting down is one way that we maybe haven't done before.
Yeah.
When you talk about India, massive, like stupidly big, and when it comes to blends, I think the top 4 whiskies by volume in the world are only available in the Indian market. They're maybe moving into single malt. Do you see that as a volume increase, or will it be a volume decrease but a value increase? Do you think there'll be a balance there of where the Indian market is going? Will they drink less but drink better, like we kind of try and encourage here? Or
yeah, I think it's the same. Ladder up, I think some the interesting thing sometimes is actually look at the economics of a country. So if you want to know where you put your whiskey, you look at the economics, because as soon as you start seeing more disposable income coming to a person's pocket, that's where people ladder up, moving away from, it could be their white spirit, it could be their homegrown spirit, it could be blended whiskey, and then into single malt. You just look at the economics. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Because what we're looking for is disposable income, I suppose, So as soon as a country is affluent enough or has stability to have a bit of disposable income, that's when they start to show that, and then reach into laddering up anyway, at least to where we are. Because it's, again, I don't want to emphasize that too much, well, but I don't see it as such. But there are still markets who will maybe put or categorize single malt as that kind of status symbol, and again, we all like status symbols.
Yeah. Kat, you came back to see us.
Oh my gosh, my internet tonight. Like, honestly, why do I even pay the bill? Or maybe I haven't paid the bill. Maybe that's the problem. It's so bad.
You came back pretty quick there, though. I think we might have some connection.
Yeah, I think it's caught up a little bit in terms of the lagginess that I was experiencing as well. I don't seem to be like 2 chats behind you guys. I'm smiling at Springer G, who's having problems. I keep seeing your finger poking your screen, Mike, and I just keep seeing Springer G putting up comments and then trying to correct him again, because I think he's maybe typing really quickly and making loads of typos, but it just makes me giggle. Question for Stuart: any recommendations for an excellent Glen Ronish to replace my 2022 Parliament and Bollywalker revival? I mean, I prefer how he's written it, to be honest. So, I think
we were talking the Indian market, so maybe the Bollywalkers allude to Bollywood.
It could be. It could be. My dad keeps sending me Indian versions of Christmas songs, which I'm absolutely loving.
Yeah.
Recommendations.
Again, it's the core range, 12, 15, 18, solid. I actually, even with change from Billy to Rachel, or if you look back at the 1980s, 15s, there's always going to be a wave there, but the core range is absolutely solid. What I would actually look at is just try and get hold of one of the distillery exclusives. The handfuls there are phenomenal, and there's always a nice combination, whether it's PX or Oloroso or older or younger. That's a good way to really see the big bones when it comes to Glendronach's style.
Have you ever been to Ardmore, Stuart?
Yeah.
The similarities between inside Glendronach and inside Ardmore are like quite remarkable, but obviously they're owned by the same people for a while, but very, very similar in between the 2 sites.
Yep, sister distilleries.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the archive stuff at Ardmore was found at Glendronach, but like it's that whole kind of copper, red oxide kind of vibes. Just so pretty. Like,
the one thing I find interesting about that, though, is, and it maybe goes back to the teacher's days, where, again, on the blending kind of combination, is how Ardmore maintained that little Highland smoke, and Glendronach then started verging into the deeper, darker notes. So, but you can understand why it is on a blending front, because again, as a blender, you want different contrasts to come together. So I think they're a perfect partnership in a family, but I do love what they're doing with Ardmore now as well, particularly, and they're really trying to kind of get some nice, promote it better, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like Teachers is such a massive brand now as well. You kind of almost forget that Ardmore is there because of the Teachers brand. I think a lot of people have a disconnect between the 2 as well. They don't often associate Ardmore with the home of Teachers. But yeah, it's such a big global name now. It's cool. And it's Mike, it's always his answer to if you could buy any distillery, what would it be? So that'd be a good next question for you then, Stuart. If you could buy or revive any distillery, what would it be?
Oh, yeah, again, that's a thing if you're with, oh goodness.
That's a big question.
You know what? Yeah, I've actually said this before. If the lottery came up and it was the big millions, I'd actually just buy Benriach. I would see if Brown Farmer could sell me Benriach.
I thought you were going to say Tovermorey. I thought you were going to be building
Calmax, I can't deal with Calmac anymore. Calmac are going to pop.
But you can buy them too. You got enough money. You've won the lottery. You can buy them too.
Helicopter. That's true. No, I must admit, Tovermorey would be good. But if you think about it, if you were to build a distillery from scratch, that would be a project that you could really hang your hat on. And I think I've got that. I think see if the budget, right? And it's not only about building the distilleries, we're building the people that are in the distillery. What I would actually love to build is the strongest, most MFing team that are just solid whiskey people. And I won't say it to them and to embarrass them tonight, but there's certain people I would say, see if I could use my team, if you and my team were strong. If I could use my team were strong. Imagine building this like ultimate warrior distillery with the top
Galactic
of whiskey people, you know?
The Harlem
I love
Globetrotters of whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It's like
an awesome building the question though, because that's such a fun game of like if you could cherry pick all the people in the industry to run this super distillery, like who would it be? Because you've got to get Ian Allen, like who is just like, you know, one of the best people in whiskey who was on earlier. Paul McKendrick, of course, because you know he's also very lovely and looks good in a sweetie bikini. That's
oh God, don't.
This happened live on the chat. This is not just personal stories.
Yeah.
Who else have we had on?
I'm going to say Mark Watt as well because he also looks great in a sweetie bikini.
Also,
well, Mark would
only
be my Mark would definitely be my Japanese importer or Japanese feet in the ground.
I love that.
But that's I think that is. Imagine that. It's that dream team of whiskey people, and just God, you no matter what you made, you would sell it.
Do you think you would run the risk there of having? So who would lead it? Because I imagine these people you're bringing together have. You need like a Pep Guardiola to manage that, or a Jurgen Klopp, or somebody to hold them all together and make sure that's football. Sorry, Kat.
Well, that's where I would use. Need somebody like who would you need? Anne. Like a good school teacher matron to kind of keep you all right.
I never met her. Obviously, she was before my time, but somebody like Bessie Williamson sounds like she would be able to handle them.
Yeah.
Yes,
so somebody with a little whip that could just like
100% horn rim glasses and her tweed skirts. She would 100% keep everybody in line. I love that. Oh, this is such a fun game. Definitely. I wonder, we should definitely try and roll out questions like this every week because Callum always does his one of like favorites in the regions. But
go on. There's a game that I think that should be made, and maybe somebody's made it already. I know there was a whiskey monopoly that was getting.
The Cooperage. The Cooperage did a monopoly.
But I think I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I'm sure top trumps are still there. I want a top trumps of whiskey. You know, you pick a card. Okay, what's your fermentation? Boom, I'll beat you there. What's your? I'll beat you there. I want a top trumps of distilleries, and I think somebody should devise that.
That's an awesome idea. I love
the
that.
The only person who would have that information would be Ingvar. He's got all that. He's got the tools.
But it's almost like, it's almost like you pull out a page out of his book and use that, just decrease it in size and make that a card. Because it's like I choose production. And it's like, well, I make 5 million, I make whatever. So you could actually do that. Funny thing about that, good question. I'll just bring that up. I was really, unfortunately, Glendronach, a lot of people know, has changed its production. The old mash tun that was put in 1967 has had its day. The cask was getting too thin. It just was, again, wasn't even yielding so good as it would have done. So we have replaced the new mash tun at Glendronach. But prior to that, and the fact that we've got 3 traditional mash tuns, we did have one of each site. I was thinking, how many traditional mash tuns are left in Scotland? So I started flicking through the whiskey yearbook. Okay, there's one. Oh, there's one. There's one. But I'm not going to take hours doing that. So just phoned up and dropped him an email at least and said, well, I know you've got the data somewhere. How many traditional mash tuns are left in Scotland? Within about 15 minutes, came back and he said, look, 13. And that was like 3 years ago or something like that. So these are these lovely snippets that, again, industry changes, and there's nothing. I've got nothing against modernization or how the industry goes, but you've got to remember some of these little snippets as well, which maybe that just tweaks your buttons for something, you know. And again, it's not for good or bad. It's just like people shouldn't be more aware of the overall. Let's say honesty about the industry. I think a lot of people, if I'm over in the US, you might get somebody who says, oh, I drink la la la. I drink Mr. Buchanan. There is a Buchanan's whiskey, you can't say that, but I drink this whiskey. I've seen pictures and it looks idyllic. It's up in the hills and there's Highland cows and there's the castle and the glens. It's like, but the distillery doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, and you know many examples, you know that happens. The end consumer doesn't, because they're almost getting hoodwinked into thinking this Glenbrachen, or again, I know that is one actually, but that
it's hard to make up a word on the spot, isn't it? But yeah.
Aye, but does that agitate me? I said, well, no, it doesn't agitate me, because say like a fictional whiskey like Glen Blether, if that brings somebody into the category, and then ultimately they are more educated, then lead on to where we are, it's done its job.
Yeah, I agree with that, because the one whiskey I always hear is Macallan. Everybody knows it. Everyone around the world knows it. And people slag it off. You know, it's lost its way, but it's too expensive. Yeah, okay, it's too expensive. But if that's your gateway into whiskey, then great, because it's brought you to Scotland, it's brought you looking for Macallan, and then it's brought you looking for other distilleries like Macallan. So, I mean, I don't have any problems with that romanticism or that sort of premiumization or whatever else you want to call it. Because, yeah, it's just bringing in new audiences, and that's what we need. We need to capture new audiences all the time. So, yeah.
I think what Macallan did, and we noticed that because we were doing tours quite often, and we could never get into Macallan. But what you saw off the back of Macallan's kind of closed gate regime, where you had to book or you had to have an appointment or whatever it was, is that so many people went there and got turned away. You noticed that the other distilleries started up in their game. Glenallachie put in a fantastic tour in Bar Centre. Cardew, their tour is phenomenal, with big cinema screen the size of the kiln roof. Everyone started looking at, because they knew that people would be disappointed not getting a Macallan. They're like, well, we're here now. Where can we go? Let's go and visit these other places. So the benefit of that Macallan kind of elitism is that everyone else benefited from it, and people started spreading out and saying, well, let's go here. Yeah, and I think it was ultimately it was great for the rest of the guys, because they were able, they kind of got a little bit of a kick in the arse to push on.
I think what happens again, can't talk out of turn here as well, but again, what happens is it's not there's no negativity on Macallan itself, because what then it's going to find is when you do get in, even you're more elite, which actually is the brand equity they're looking for. So it's not hurting them. It might have an adverse effect on them, but not globally, not in their overall numbers.
No.
So they're worried about the small percentage that might have walked away. But that's an interesting part of the industry as well, is I suppose that elitism, which I don't like, because I think, again, looking at the industry itself, we're trying to get away from that elitism. And if there are any of my guys out there listening, it's like even words like, I don't even like words like luxury. I don't like words like prestige, because by nature, single malt is luxury and prestige. We don't have to force this prestige and luxury down people's throats, because by nature, that's what we are.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, we're something that you don't need to have in your life, or something you want to have in your life. So I think there's always going to be two ends to that scale, though, you know, in terms of a non-necessary item. You're always going to have the kind of entry level into it, and then you're always going to have your higher end of it. So I don't think it's ever going to change, to be honest. But yeah, I think there's maybe this sort of premiumization and luxury is maybe banded about a little bit too much, especially this year. But how else do you brand it, though? If you've got really, really old stock, like really old whiskey, the value is going to be high. So that is naturally going to fall under that kind of prestige luxury kind of title. So either lean into that or try and change the system, I guess. But it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one.
I mean, they could stop spending a ridiculous amount of money on a fancy box and a fancy bottle and make it a bit more affordable.
Yeah, I get them all.
My opinion of things is, I think, especially in the modern environment we live in, the more people are marketed to, the more they know they'll get marketed and turned away. You know what I mean? So if you're keeping luxury, if I'm a luxury guy, remember, if I'm a multi high net worth individual, I can have luxury any day I want. I can have every bit of luxury I want. You telling me this is luxury isn't going to make it a lot more luxurious. It just means I might pick one up. So it's, what does luxury mean to individuals? Luxury to us is something different than what a luxury means to a high net worth individual who is going to be the clientele, let's say, for some of that stuff. So that's where there's a crossover. That's where there's a divide. And I guarantee you, you've met them yourself, Mike, you've met them yourself, Cam. Some of the highest net worth individuals that come to Scotland to come and buy a single malt, what do they want? They want to sit down on a beach with a cigar and do nothing. They don't want a 5-star dining. They don't want this big experience. They want to just sit and chill and have a cigar and a chat and a dram.
And some of them are the nicest people, and they just you have this preconception of them being, but you can't connect with them. But
they might well fly in their helicopter, but they're still going to walk up in their sand shoes, flip flops, and shorts. But the marketing side of your heart net worth will say it's got to be black tie, it's got to be, that echelons of hosting. They don't want that. They can do that anytime they want. What they want is sit on the beach with a dram.
Yeah.
100%. I like Ian has commented saying, going back to the old series, he desperately wanted to dislike the old series because they were non-age statement, but tried them at our shop's recent tasting and proved to be quite good and distinctive tastes, and he bought one. So, breaking down barriers, I think the phrase liquid on lips is one that some people love, some people hate, but I don't
know if he's got a particular favourite, but actually I had one set up, make sure I had covered all bases. My favourite of the series, to the Embers. Repeated, which again might be a bit of a knee-jerk thinking Glendronach and Sherry, to the Dark, etc. But you give me that to the Embers. That goes back to the way whiskey used to be. This is like tasting Glendronach in the early 1970s, 50s, 40s. This is old school Glendronach, and Rachel's doing a great job to almost look back to see what that was and recreate it for today's market. So, history there.
Yeah, he bought the Valley, despite thinking that the Dark would have been the favourite. I think that he has been honest enough to kind of say, I didn't think I would like this because they're non-age statement, or he wanted to dislike it. I think sometimes we have that preconception. Somebody wants to dislike something, or even if they like it, they won't admit to it so much. So they're like, I can't like that. I've kind of grown up in marketing has led me to believe that something needs a 10-year, 12-year, or 15-year. So putting liquid and let's breaking down these barriers, I think is the best way. And with that goes back to what you're saying before about lowering the ABV, breaking down these barriers and making sure that people are comfortable drinking what they want to drink, rather than being judged and chastised and, I never had ice, you shouldn't add water, blah, blah, blah. Why are you drinking that 12-year-old? You'd only drink 15 and higher and all this. I think
there's actually, again, it's not, and this is not an argument, it's actually just a point of fact where, when to understand what happens today, you have to look back, and that's in every regard to single malt. If you want to understand a distillery today, you look back 10 years ago, what was a cask policy? You look back 20 years ago, what was the industry's ups and downs? Was it closed? Was it open? Is there less of it? Is there more of it? So you have to understand what we are drinking on the shelf today, you have to look back, not think about today. But that's also sometimes what happens, and I think maybe even today's environment, so where you're blinkered into thinking this is only what whiskey is. In the 5 years I've been drinking whiskey, or the 10 years I've been drinking whiskey, you've got this kind of blinker in there. How long ago was it that you've seen the shelf at Glendronach? 8-year-old across most Scottish distilleries was the oldest whiskey you were going to get, even 40 years ago. Can anybody argue with that?
You think the Glengarry 8-year-old kind of became the core for the Founders Reserve, wasn't it? But because of market and the 8-year-old kind of did itself very well, and they took it off and put Founders Reserve on it. Am I right with that?
Yeah, it was an 8-year-old before the Founders Reserve came on the go. But yeah, it's just one of those funny numbers that, I don't know, like I see it all the time. People have these kind of preconceived ideas about 15, 18, 21 being these kind of goal posts that you have to reach, these kind of like marker points you have to get to in quality. But
I would like to think,
if somebody talks about, we do talk about tradition when it comes to saying, well, because tradition is what it's laid down as, but tradition's always changed as well. So what is tradition? It's only 30, 40 years ago that ages really come through. So you've got to understand what tradition is. The other thing, even I could even go back further. Look at 1826 when the license, or 1823 License Act comes in, or Glendronach was founded 1826. It's like, well, can you say you were the only sherry cask? No. We can't say we own sherry cask, or we were kind of. We were the kind of leaders of sherry cask manufacturing because that's all that was available. And actually, if you want to go deeper, you walk into a warehouse in 1826, you'd probably see more rum barrels than you would see sherry casks. So if somebody's going to say to me about changing tradition or breaking tradition in the window they live in a 20-year, let's say, segment we are, you look back at what tradition is. There's never been a tradition.
Yeah. Tradition doesn't have an age limit or an age statement, I guess. It's not.
So there is.
Yeah.
I know. I think the only reason some like whiskey and some distilleries have survived as long as they have is because they've changed, they've evolved. They've kind of modernized, they've moved to the times, they've explored different maturations. Because there was not enough casks, so they had to start exploring different wood types. It's like. And there isn't, you're right, there's no tradition. It's just us all surviving. It's us being savvy and trying to utilize what we have, trying to make the most of what we've got, and then trying to convince people that, they should buy it. I mean, yeah, it's just evolution. It's not really tradition. And the tradition is the fact we make whiskey in Scotland. That's the only thing that's constant. But
I think that's why I hammer on so much about my little
You've got the ultimate marketing tool there, Stuart. If you've got Benriach, Glendronach, and Glenglassaugh in those little bottles, if you package that up nice, that could be the most expensive, like, gimmick you could sell. You could sell that for 500 quid, put your face on it, and people would buy it.
We just need to get you like a chaise lounge to recline on and be like, I go to bed with nothing but my Benriach number 5.
Different balloons. Oh, it's autumn. That's time for the peated Benriach.
100%. That's the marketing campaign we need right now. Let's get that sorted. Amazing. I love it.
A chaise lounge with nothing but his Numic spirit.
Can I keep my beard? I've got a lot of effort into making that beard.
I would definitely keep the beard.
Yeah, crushed velvet, chaise lounge, beard, and your cologne bottles full of Numic spirit. There's an image I'm not going to get out of my head, to be honest, but I'm not sad about it. I think we just need. I think it's going to be in everybody's Christmas list campaign. Love it.
It should be a calendar.
Look, because I love.
You know what?
It should be.
That is actually that's one of the worries with the AI these days.
Well, so
Callum will have that on a mug by tomorrow.
So Callum Renton is very good at picking out the most ridiculous things that I've said, and then making them into a mug for me the next day. So with AI. So he's gonna have you decked out on a chaise lounge with your Chanel number 5, your Benriach number 5. I love that.
Wet Leg playing in the background. I love that Wet Leg song.
Yes. That's exactly it. 100%. See, I think there's something very sensual about the way Rachel Barry talks about whiskey. Like, she just is like Nigella Lawson of whiskey. She just has these beautiful, eloquent ways of like wording things that just make you kind of like almost taste what she's talking about. It's such a skill. So yeah, I think you can just
I think
be the embodiment.
what I love about Rachel is she is so much fun. Rachel is fun. You know, she'll never take herself seriously either. She just I don't know if you noticed it. She was going to London today. She was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. She's a red nose. You know what I mean? Just like with a cold. She's got no pretentiousness whatsoever. And I always say, if you're in a room with Rachel, just stand back and let her go, because she's going to light the place up.
She's brilliant. She pops into the shop. Obviously, her parents were living in Brewery. She pops in now and then, especially she'll maybe be due in sometime soon because Christmas time. But last time she was in, she just started taking bottles off the shelf and signing them and putting them back in the tubes, and be like, that's a little surprise for somebody. It was great fun. Then she always says, I'm just popping in, and her husband's there, and you can just see him thinking, well, there's another hour gone, because Rachel doesn't do pop in. There's so much conversation and chat, and then people walk in and she ends up speaking to them and inevitably walk out with one of her whiskies.
I think this is also you could actually, because Rachel's phenomenal, and again, just by circumstance, the whiskies I've loved in 20 years were her whiskies. You know, working even with Aughie or before, you know, I've always highly regarded and loved what she's done, whether I knew or not. But it goes back, and we haven't talked about it, but it could sometimes be the elephant in the room about Brown-Forman. I love Brown-Forman. I think Brown-Forman's amazing for these brands. Global reach, getting the money's coming in. But a lot of people still will maybe say, oh, Brown-Forman, I was like, what you can call it Brown-Forman, just call it Jack Daniels. But Brown-Forman's portfolio is phenomenal. You know, we think of what they've got across the board now. You know, whether it's Gin Mare, the Diplomatico, the American whiskey side, the Herradura tequilas, Humidor. The portfolio is amazing. It's not just Jack Daniels. But a lot of people still think we're controlled by this big corporate bubble. It probably would blow people away to understand there's probably only 6 people that look after the malts. And it's Callum, Laura, Louise, who are basically London-based, but from Ireland, Edinburgh, and Dunblane. And then it's down to me, Rachel, Keith, and on the advocacy time. So as much as Brown-Forman as the parent company, yes, they give us the cash. They don't really. It's really the brand team that have the influence of what happens, and definitely read by Rachel, and that's why this came into my mind, because Rachel's got every decision that's made on the ground of how she wants to make whiskey. It's not led by the marketing team or the global, let's say, corporate structure of Brown-Forman. She does what she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely can see that as well. And she obviously is very passionate about what she does, because, you know, every time you hear her speak, you can see it, you can feel it. Let's say with yourself as well, and that's always a good indicator that you're happy with the company you work for, because you couldn't fake that sort of passion constantly, you know. So yeah, it's.
So you did Jack and Coke. I was brought up in Jack and Coke. when people said to me, I remember actually the time I was in Germany or Belgium. I was like, what do you think? I've heard the press release. Brown-Forman, Jack Daniels buys Brewery Distillery Company, Billy Walker Show. I was like, bring it on. Been drinking Jack for probably 30 years. But also you've got to look at the kind of the influence of that as well. Again, it's about that kind of behind the scenes. How many Jack Daniels barrels are in Scotland?
Mm.
Would the industry be the same? Would Scottish industry be the same without Jack Daniels? If you know what I mean, and that secondary cask purchase through into maturation, it wouldn't be. And the fact that we can phone up Louisville, Kentucky, and we've got X amount, 4,000, whatever it is, barrels will come in 6 weeks, shipping time, delivered right to our door, route to, you know, procurement, that is a security in cask, you know. And also, what does that bring? It means we're saving money in the American barrel side, which contributes to Benriach and Glassa, which gives us more money to spend in Spain for Glendronach. It was a win-win situation. So if anybody says to me, what do you think about American company owning your distillery? It's like, bring it on.
I love
Yeah.
it. I remember you talking about that in the tasting, and the angle you go for is, we save money here. Because my worry was that you're going to see more bourbon casks or American oak casks coming into Glendronach. But you just describe it as, well, no, Benriach will take them, save money there, but the overall company can then use that money on better quality casks.
That's right. Again, I can't say this legally or online, but if Rachel says it, I can say it. So basically, no, per litre, and I have to put the caveat in, per litre of alcohol we make, we spend more money in Jerez than anywhere else. So it's not about we spend more money in Jerez than any other distillery, but per litre of alcohol we make, we spend more money in Jerez, and that's only just down to the budget's balance. Same thing, keep it small helps that. If you're making 15, 25 million litre a year, your accountants aren't going to say, oh, there's 5 times more cash budget. I was like, no, you have to make that same budget go further, So again, look at that scalability, the scale we're working on, it affords us many things to keep us in that level where we should be.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And with the obviously next year being a big anniversary for Glendronach. Last time I saw you at distillery, I was lucky enough to see a little bit of what you're working on through the archives. What can we expect for the 200th anniversary? Is there anything big planned?
I could honestly tell you, I don't know. And I actually mean that wholeheartedly, because it's like such an open book just now. We're really working on it at the moment. And it's been to Glendronach in the last 2 years has noticed it's like a building site. So there's a lot of things to happen. We can only be dictated by the weather through the winter. So, it's a good wind behind us. I think in all reality, I don't think we'll start celebrating until late spring. You could be 4 foot of snow in April at Glendronach. You know what I mean? So let's just let the weather calm down. Let's get the buildings finished. Let's make sure we can have the place ready for hosting. So on that, I would just say, watch this space. Home place, again, with Jen and the team at the Visitor Centre. I think we're probably looking into late spring, but then any big brand activations might well be into August, September, October.
Yeah.
And Rachel's also working on a few little things under the desk to celebrate as well. So I'll let her make that announcement when they happen.
Fair enough.
We get cameos of you and Rachel in the next Kingsman film for the anniversary. Oh, the whole squad come up to the distillery.
There was actually one of our brand, Emma at distillery. She sent me a picture of. She's trying to build a deck for hosting at the distillery, and she goes, "What do you think of this picture to use for you to put your wee bio on?" And it's me standing on the right hand side. It's Rachel on the left hand side, and in front of the spirit safe of Glenglassaugh, looking through that big door, and our eyes are making contact. It's like, no, that's too creepy. It was like a look me in the eye thing. It was like, oh no. But yeah, we do have a good hoot when we're together. I think we're quite similar in our actually we're not far off age-wise. Actually, we're very similar in our outlook in life.
I mean, you both definitely share the same passion for your product. That's without doubt.
Yeah.
You rub off each other very, very well.
No,
Callum's asked if we can get Rachel on the Blether in 2026.
So, yes, I was chatting to Rachel at the start of this year, actually, and she was going to come on with Kirsten, is it? Her kind of second band. And we've just never managed to make diaries work. Rachel is just always on an airplane going somewhere amazing and fabulous. So I'll
Yeah,
reach out to her again at the start of the year.
she really was solid this year, because especially with the kind of reface of Glendronach and the addition of the Master Anthology and the 30 and 40-year-old. Rachel's never been out in the market as much, so she was very heavy going. But yeah, I've been I've got great admiration for this as well, because when Kirsten started with Rachel in the kind of assistant blending, it was quite. I liked seeing this happen, because a lot of markets were coming in. Can we get Kirsten, the new assistant master blender? And Rachel goes, no. It's like they're all going, but that's a great aspect. Young, early 20s, female assistant blender. That's great. It's like, no.
To kind of protect her and let her find her own feet, sort of thing. I think he's frozen.
I think that was it. That was just Rachel was just like, no, you can't. No reason, just no. But just no. I'm going to go with that. I think Rachel was looking to protect her. She has her own job to concentrate on. Is he back?
You're back.
But you can imagine it. Imagine sticking somebody who just started a job and there's whiskey guys coming in asking the questions. It's like, Kirsten's not going to be anywhere until she knows her job. She's been at least 2 years in there and really getting to know the whiskies. And I think that was great admiration on our part to say, no, don't let the marketing team lead that as such. Don't let that way. Just be honest and say no.
Yeah, quite right. Exactly. So.
Yeah. I mean, we're at a stage now in the industry where maybe not. Rachel's not at that kind of age yet, but you look at guys like Billy, Jim McEwen, Robert Fleming. We're seeing these young assistant blend, David Stewart. We're seeing the assistant blenders coming through and getting a lot more airtime than probably they would have got if they come into the industry 20 years ago. So that I think that protection that Rachel is kind of giving Kirsten is ideal. You got Ronan, Curry, and Ian Perteeth, and these kind of guys coming through. I think both of them were brand ambassadors, so maybe a little bit more used to the limelight coming in. How do you see that transformation happening from that old school kind of blender? We now call them master blenders.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. The same thing. Nobody retires from whiskey.
No.
They don't, because even there's been the waves in the last 3 years. These guys started in the 60s. They started in the golden era. They started in that heyday. And if you're going to keep riding that wave for 40, 50 years, and they have. You don't retire from the industry. So just by chance in the last 5 years particularly, there's been a lot of retirements, which leaves a gulf, doesn't it? So who's going to fill that gulf? Hopefully, again, you look out and it's like, I want whiskey people still to be filling that gulf, or maybe not so much whiskey people, but at least strong whiskey teams. And I think that's one thing that's maybe changing as you're moving away from having that one figurehead of a master blender, a master distiller. It does become more of a team mentality. And I don't think that's a bad idea. In fact, one thing Billy said to me back in the day, he always said, no man is bigger than the whiskey. Now you could perfectly transfer that over to no woman is bigger than the whiskey. But I think that's something I've always held in my ethos dearly, is like, it's not about you.
Yeah, it's a custodianship of looking after the spirit, looking after it. But I think we see, in my lifetime, we've never seen such a shift. So many what we regard of the iconic figureheads who, when they started the job, they started in the industry, never would have dreamt of being this very public scrutiny over it. Maybe not scrutiny is the wrong word, but idolization and people looking at them and asking for them to attend tastings. I'm pretty sure if you watch Jim McEwen's film, he's like, I'm just a guy making whiskey. Why do people want to see me and fly me across the world to talk about the whiskey? Whereas now the guys coming in, they're, is there like a training regime? Do they get that kind of course from the brand to say, here's how to handle that kind of pressure? Because not only are you making a whiskey, but you've got to go out there and talk about it and have a social media presence and all that kind of thing. It must be such a big 24-hour job. Whereas probably before it was maybe 9 to 5.
I was just going back to that same thing Billy said. No man is bigger than whiskey. No woman is bigger than whiskey. It's not. You're there to fill your role, but when you then become the figurehead, it's like, well, that's the wrong direction. It's the brand that comes first. But I think you're right as well. And this is something that's quite an interesting point. And if Mark's still out there, we've talked this about in depth. See, people who are coming into whiskey that were like, whether it was through the 60s, 70s, they generally came from that chemistry background. Maybe more recently, they've gone through just maybe doing the courses, the
diplomas and
exam. But historically, your old blenders were and distillers were actually your distillers were ground roots up. Your distillers were warehousemen, mashman, stillhouseman, brewer, distiller. That was the avenue. The blended avenue was chemistry, and then then blender. That has gone a little bit in some cases, I think, and you're not going to get that back. But what happens with the old route was it was about the process and it was about what happens. And I think when people who are in that environment, they're not people, or they're actually quite, what's the word? They're not extrovert, they're more introvert.
Yeah.
And Mark will tell you the same thing. We've sat with at length, and there's many other people in the industry who are out on the main whiskey stage who are not extroverts. They're introverts because they love what they do, but they've been forced to be extroverts.
Yeah. That was going right back to the start of tonight's chat about Tom Moore. And you might have had this experience. Did you say was it your dad, your father, or your uncle? Your stepdad. They were so proud of Tom Moore, and they went out and they talked and they defended it to the hilt, even though Tom Moore as a brand, nobody knew anything about it because it just went into blend. But they were so defensive and so proud and passionate about what they did, without the pizzazz of marketing and social media. It was just that's what they felt, and that's it was that loyalty that came with it, without the reward, I guess. So it's nice if that can continue. That would be amazing.
I think that happens across. I can talk about whiskey friends or whiskey. There's no such thing as a competitor in where we are and where we sit in our jobs, because we're just one. It sounds corny. It is corny, but we're just one big cheesy whiskey family. I'm going down to Edinburgh tomorrow. I'll meet up with the guys from Arran, Ardnamurchan, my old colleague Douglas Cook, for example, Lucy Strosser, bump into other whiskey people. It's like there's not the sales team. The sales guys can be out doing what they do. The marketing come out with new ideas, but as whiskey people, we're just one big cheesy whiskey family, and hopefully that will never go away. That's what I don't want whiskey to lose.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I can't imagine that going away. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it changing. But you're right, yeah. And we end up touching this nearly every single week, to the point where folk must be like, yeah, okay, you said that before, but it's so true. It is just such a community vibe. From festivals to days out to meetups to accidental kind of bump into people. It's always so nice. Everybody wants to share and catch up, and I love it. And there's no other industry that I know like that. So we're very lucky to be part of it, I think.
100%.
Yeah. And what other industry could you ask a legend to turn up dressed as Santa with a homemade foam beard. It's probably.
I love making that.
I love it.
I really hope you get to use it again rather than just for the first 5 minutes of tonight. You keep it. We'll auction it off. We'll find a charity and we'll auction it off. And one of the guys at home can put in a bid for it. We'll send it out to you. Stuart will sign it.
Definitely.
Honestly,
How do you sign a beard?
Good point.
He'll spray it with all 3 new make spirits. There we go. It'll come with the brown foam.
Santa's sensory experience.
Although, if you are a heavy smoker,
taking that down the pub. Do you want to smell my beard? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a talking point right there, isn't it? Come smell my beard. Yeah, I love it. That's the quote for the night, I think.
It's brilliant. It's been so much fun. I had no idea. I honestly came in tonight with a plan of talking about last year and talking about drams of the night of the year and surprises and all that. We're just gone on a completely different tangent, which is great. That's what the Blether's all about. That's why we love it. Guys, thank you so much at home for not just sticking with us tonight through our technical issues, but sticking with it. I mean, it's not Blether without a techie issue, to be honest. But throughout the year, you come back every week and
I know.
listen to it. And it's been so much fun this year. I do want to kind of just say, that the last week is kind of hit with a couple of passes. Obviously, Robin Lang being a massive impact on us, because I knew Robin well. We were talking about him coming back for another staying in music event, and that was a shock. So we'll raise a glass to him, and then Jim just the other day passing as well. So former Glenlivet distiller, lost 2 heroes of the industry, and just wanted to raise a glass and say, remember everyone else who we probably won't mention tonight. So let's have a wee glass to these guys who are no longer with us.
Indeed. Yeah. And there is so many legends. That's what I love about this. It's crazy. Slanger.
Cheers.
Slange.
And,
I know.
Yeah, so on to next year. That's us done for this year. We'll be back mid-January. The whole calendar. Kat has got this whole thing wrapped up for 50 weeks of blethering.
I think we've all realised by now that Kat pretty much just operates by dropping into DMs and hoping for the best on a Monday. But like always, send me your suggestions of people you'd like me to track down. If you know people in the industry, unsung heroes, new emerging people that you know about, friends, family members that you know work in the industry that they should get a shout out, ping them to me. Just you know how to find me on socials. Give me some suggestions and I'll try my best to track these people down and get them on. We had a couple of people that couldn't make it this year just due to family and personal situations. So we're going to get them back on next year too. We're also just super grateful for people giving us their time, just like you, Stuart. So we never, ever take advantage of that. We're always so grateful that people give up a Thursday evening to come and talk nonsense with us. So, and you guys at home as well. So we're always, and I love the little community you guys have built as well. All you guys chatting to each other is just makes me happy. I love it. So, excited for who we can get on next year and what's going to happen.
Going to be good.
And hopefully I'll get internet. Let's get some crowdfunding. Crowdsurfing's different. Crowdfunding on the go and get me some better internet. That would be great.
And we need to catch up in person as well at some point, Kat. So let's schedule that into next year.
100%. Definitely. And if you're ever passing by the distillery, shout and coming past as well.
Definitely.
Come and
Well, again, it's been, it's funny because I listen to again a
looking
lot.
forward
Not
to
all
the
of
new
the,
year and everything that it brings.
not all of your things, but hopefully it gives you a different. That's what these things are good for. It gives a different insight from different people in different aspects. So I know we sit and garble away, but as long as a percentage feels a little bit different from the one before, or a little bit insight in something else, that's all we can ask.
100%. Stuart, one big thank you again. Not just for joining us, but for putting the effort in for the wee Santa surprise at the start. Thank you all the guys who've watched, not just tonight, but if you're watching afterwards. Let's look forward to a great 2026, and hopefully we'll see you over the interim. If we don't, have a great have a great New Year, great Christmas. Hope Santa's good to you. If Santa's not good to you, we'll send Stuart round with his beard, and I'm sure he'll be good to you instead. Thanks, right, guys.
Ew.
Hey guys,
All the best. Good night.
slender rat.
Oh, Kat, you're going to have to stop the recording because I can't do it.
Cool. I will do that. I want it. Night, everyone.
Seamless. It's